Our story begins with a strange sight. A man whose first instinct during the apocalypse was to collect baby formula and diapers, all because he had adopted a human infant. Every zombie around him mocked him as a fool, but what they didn't know was that this baby girl was actually the reincarnation of the human empress. In her past life, she had conquered worlds and survived countless life and death tribulations, slaying the strongest of alien races, only to face a tragic end. She had been ambushed during her final trial and died at the hands of the Starry Hive Queen, but now, she has returned to the start of the apocalypse 50 years ago. The only problem, of course, is that she is now a mere infant, while our protagonist was attacked by zombies the moment he arrived in this world. He eventually turned into a zombie himself, though fortunately, he managed to retain his human consciousness and survive for a month on frozen meat found in a fridge. By now, the meat in the refrigerator has begun to rot, and while normal zombies might enjoy such a meal, a man with human thoughts simply cannot accept it. With no other choice, he disguised himself as an ordinary zombie to search for food, and just as he entered a house to check the kitchen, he suddenly heard a baby crying in the next room. When he pried open the bedroom door, he found a scene that was surprisingly peaceful. The warmth of the room stood in stark, almost absurd contrast to the bloodstains he had seen in the living room. The infant, being Roashua, felt her heart sink into utter despair. She had finally been reborn, only to find that the first creature she saw wasn't her parents, but a zombie. She hadn't eaten in a long time, and combined with this moment of absolute terror, Roashua found herself overwhelmed by physiological fear and hunger. She promptly fainted. Looking at the little one, he felt a surge of surprise. Though she was only a few months old, her eyes seemed to hold a deep sense of sorrow. In that moment, he felt a strange sense of empathy. He and this little girl were both lost souls who had inexplicably arrived in this world. They were both victims of a cruel fate, meeting during the end of the world, yet this sudden new life felt like a flickering light in the darkness. It gave him a new sense of direction, and so, he decided to adopt the little one. However, he soon realized that the poor thing had fainted from hunger. The formula cans in the room were completely empty, so he decided to head out to find more. He carefully closed the bedroom door to keep her safe. He even moved a sofa in front of the door to prevent other zombies from entering, but after a fruitless search for food in the kitchen, he had to move on. He headed upstairs, where the third-floor hallway was covered in dried, dark brown blood and unmentionable fragments of limbs scattered across the floor. Despite the open doors, the stench of decay was unbearable, and several mangled zombies still lingered in the corridor. He was already quite used to this. He had grown accustomed to the silence while scavenging, but after searching several kitchens, he found no formula, only small scraps of meat that hadn't yet fully rotted away. It wasn't until he reached a home on the 5th floor that he saw the grim reality. The mother had turned, and her child had already been consumed. He fell into a heavy silence, realizing that if the little one hadn't been locked in that bedroom, her fate would have been exactly the same. Fortunately, we see him find 2 unopened cans of formula and a bit of fresh meat in the kitchen. Meanwhile, little Roashua, drifting in a daze, felt the taste of milk entering her mouth. She instinctively began to drink, and as the energy returned to her tiny body, she struggled to open her eyes. To her shock, she wasn't dead. Instead, a zombie was acting like a wet nurse, carefully feeding her with a spoon. In her past life, she remembered zombies only as bloodthirsty monsters. She had even personally executed companions who had turned into these creatures. She wondered if this zombie was simply raising her to eat her later. He, of course, had no idea what the little one was thinking. He simply felt a wave of relief seeing her wake up. However, because she hadn't eaten in so long, a single bowl of milk wasn't nearly enough. She was still hungry, but for a moment, he forgot he was a zombie. He tried to speak to comfort her, only to realize he could only produce a low guttural growl. He quickly shut his mouth and turned away, preparing 3 more bowls of milk before she was finally full. Raising a child, he realized, is no easy task. He made a mental note to gather more formula. Luckily, it was sealed and wouldn't spoil. Once Roashua had eaten her fill, she lay back in her crib with a sense of satisfaction, though the situation felt utterly absurd. To be honest, the scent of this zombie was unmistakable. He was clearly a low-level, newly transformed creature, and a zombie of this rank shouldn't possess any intelligence whatsoever. She simply couldn't wrap her head around what was happening. But as a former empress who had survived countless crises, Roashua gradually began to calm herself down. Though fear still lingered, she told herself that even if he intended to eat her, at least she would die with a full stomach. The days of hunger and the constant tension of her nerves finally gave way to exhaustion. Now that she felt safe, Roashua couldn't help but drift into a deep sleep. Watching her sleeping face, he couldn't help but smile. For the first time since the world ended, he felt a sense of peace. However, he knew that leaving a months-old infant here alone was a death sentence, and so, he decided to take her with him. This was an old 7-story apartment building, and while the lower floors were dangerous, the roof might offer a bit more safety in this crumbling neighborhood. The reason was simple. The neighborhood didn't have many zombies, but those present were restless, and he didn't dare walk the streets with the little one. So, armed with a crowbar, he easily dispatched the zombies in his path from behind. After getting the little one settled, he finally took a moment to wash himself and change into clean clothes. Aside from his wounds, he looked almost like an ordinary human, which, in this world, is a rare luxury. More importantly, he found a complete set of baby supplies in the room, likely left behind by a family who fled in a panic when the outbreak began. Perhaps it was due to his recent activity, but his limbs, which had been stiff since his transformation, seemed to have become much more coordinated. He could even perform simple human movements now. While he felt a bit puzzled by this development, he didn't dwell on it for long. His entire focus was on Ruoshua, but as he picked up a diaper to change her, a startling realization suddenly flashed through Ruoshua's mind. If she had been merely confused by him feeding her before, the sight of a zombie preparing to change a diaper changed everything. She was now certain that he had retained his human consciousness. Recalling the details of their first encounter, she realized just how different he was. Unlike other zombies, he knew how to turn doorknobs, use a crowbar, and even prepare formula. These were not the actions of a mindless monster. None of these behaviors fit the instincts of a common zombie. She became increasingly convinced that only a human could suppress the bloodlust. But a second later, Ruoshua's eyes widened in a different kind of shock. To be honest, this zombie didn't look like a woman at all. She hadn't expected her dignity to be compromised by a diaper change, but she quickly let the thought go. After all, being reborn was a miracle in itself. Since this zombie had saved her life, she told herself that such a small matter wasn't worth dwelling on. It was a fair trade, in a way. Watching him clumsily struggle with the diaper despite his improving coordination, Ruoshua felt a strange mix of touched and heartbroken. She imagined he once had a happy family before the apocalypse turned him into this. The thought of his isolation, unable to fit in anywhere, touched a soft part of her heart, and so, she made a silent decision to accept him as her zombie father. A strange choice, perhaps, but a choice nonetheless. After tidying up their new home, he considered their food requirements and decided he needed to stockpile as much as possible for the long haul. However, going out during the day might draw the suspicion of survivors and expose them both. He chose, therefore, to move under the cover of night. Before leaving, he not only closed the bedroom door, but even blocked the stairs with a cabinet to keep out both zombies and humans alike. Having witnessed the lengths people go to for survival and the darkness of human nature, he remained exceptionally cautious. He began by securing the iron gate on the first floor tightly. Only then did he start searching for supplies. Individual homes had little, but it added up. After filling his backpack, he carried several cans of formula through the night. Suddenly, however, he sensed that something was very wrong. He looked up to find the moon hanging in the sky, stained a deep, vivid crimson. Meanwhile, inside the house, Ruoshua woke up alone. After making herself comfortable in her diaper, she noticed the blood moon through the window. It seemed the era of global evolution was beginning. We see him stare at the moon in surprise, but having already lived through a zombie apocalypse, he found the sight strangely fitting. To be honest, it looked exactly like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Accepting this new reality, he went back to work. He continued moving supplies, even gathering books to read later. But during his fourth trip, a strange sensation washed over his body. A bizarre heat began to radiate within his cold interior. It was a feeling both foreign and familiar, as if he were becoming human again. Then, an unbearable itch started in his brain, making him feel as if his skull might burst. He feared his human consciousness was fading. His body burned as his blood flow accelerated and his bones grew denser. Back in the bedroom, a similar change was taking place. Ruoshua was bathed in the crimson moonlight, her tiny body trembling with heat. We don't know how much time passed before he finally woke. The world around him looked the same, but the moment he moved, he realized his movements had become incredibly agile. He was no longer the stiff, clumsy zombie he had been. To his amazement, the dark veins on his skin were fading away. Even the hair on his head had begun to grow back. Out on the streets, the wandering zombies were also undergoing a transformation. Their hideous features had softened, looking slightly more human. He felt a flicker of joy. Perhaps this world wasn't as simple as he thought. As he passed a nearby zombie, a peculiar feeling arose. He felt as though a thin, invisible thread connected him to the creature. At first, he worried he was hallucinating, but then he realized he had gained a special ability to project his thoughts through that thread. It was like controlling a puppet. As he focused his attention, he found that the mental link with the zombie grew even stronger. The connection became absolute, binding the creature to his will. And this, we suspect, was only the beginning of his new power. The link was dense, yet he couldn't issue precise orders yet, likely due to his current mental strength. He decided to name these controlled zombies puppets. Feeling a wave of exhaustion, he suddenly remembered Ruoshua was home alone. He quickly commanded 2 puppets to carry the gathered supplies and hurried back to the neighborhood. One has to admit, zombies make the perfect laborers. They require no food, no water, and certainly no salary. Meanwhile, having been baptized by the blood moon, Ruoshua woke from her deep slumber as a flood of information poured into her mind. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Unlike her past life, she had now awakened the gift of telekinesis. This power allowed her to manipulate objects with her mind alone. But the greatest surprise was that she had also regained her previous life's ability, time control. Both talents held the potential to make her a top-tier powerhouse. In her past, life, she became an empress using time control alone. With dual talents now, her offense and defense would be truly formidable. Ruashue tried to test her powers, but because her infant body was still so frail, she quickly began to suffer from sharp headaches and physical exhaustion. Even though her mental strength was currently weak, she remained full of hope for the future. She believed that as she grew, her power would far surpass her previous life, and she even fantasized about defeating the empress who killed her. Suddenly, hearing movement outside, Ruashue guessed her zombie father had returned. She couldn't help but wonder if a zombie with human consciousness would awaken special abilities after the baptism, just as humans do. We see him arrive and find the wardrobe in the hallway unmoved. He breathed a sigh of relief. For the first time, he felt he had something to protect. He easily moved the wardrobe and rushed into the bedroom to find Ruashue awake, watching him quietly. To be honest, despite never having been in a relationship, he suddenly felt the weight of being a father. He headed to the kitchen, but with the utilities cut, he had to use bottled water to prepare the little one's formula. As he stirred the milk, Ruashue was busy observing her zombie father. She noticed subtle changes. He looked slightly more human now, which didn't match her memories of typical zombie evolution. In her past life, there were many types, like the tank, massive, sturdy creatures that acted as the main battle units on the field and were a survivor's worst nightmare. But her father was different. She held great expectations for his evolution as a special zombie after the blood moon, knowing that strength is the key to survival. But seeing no obvious changes in him, Ruashue felt a twinge of disappointment. She quietly decided that once she grew up, she would possess enough power to protect him. She knew deep down that without him, a reborn infant like her would surely perish in this wasteland. She believed in repaying kindness, especially a debt as immense as this. The idea of a child caring for their parent in old age should never be just empty words. Furthermore, she was well aware of the primary methods for a zombie to evolve. The first was devouring living beings. The other was plundering the golden nuclei found within the brains of other zombies. Those extraordinary zombies who awakened supernatural abilities would form these nuclei regardless of their type. With the advantage of her rebirth, she was confident she could seize these nuclei to help him evolve into a high-level zombie, regaining speech and a human appearance. He had no idea what the little one was thinking, of course. Seeing her staring at him so intently just seemed quite amusing. Though he couldn't speak, he gestured to her, trying to explain that he had arranged for 2 zombie bodyguards and even brought her some toys. Along with the toys, he had even grabbed some exam prep books, which, looking back, was perhaps a bit premature. He suddenly realized he hadn't given her a nickname yet. Since they lived on the 7th floor, he decided to call her Chi-Chi. He hoped this name would help them remember the good times in their little home on the 7th floor. Looking at the supplies, he felt satisfied that they had enough to last quite a while. Given the uncertainty of the apocalypse, he decided to stay put for now. He would observe the situation from home and only venture out once safety was guaranteed. In the living room, he picked up a steel machete. It was about half a meter long, and one couldn't help but wonder what the previous owner did to possess such a sharp, formidable blade. Though he had never studied swordsmanship, his powerful zombie physique allowed him to swing it with surprising fluidity. He practiced in the living room, mimicking moves from martial arts movies. With this blade, he felt he could easily defend their home. While he was busy practicing his swings, Ruashue took a short rest before returning to the study of her newly awakened talents. Focusing her telekinesis, she attempted to move a silver needle on the nightstand. Though the movement was slow, the needle did stir. The needle continued to glide through the air as she practiced. 2 days passed in a flash, and we see that both of them were keeping quite busy. After he finished feeding Ruashue her milk, a sudden commotion outside caught his attention. Looking through the balcony window, he spotted something unusual. Down on the street, 2 zombies were tearing into each other despite there being no food to fight over. This strange behavior defied everything he knew about them. Since the 7th floor was too high to see clearly, he decided to head down to the 4th floor to get a better look at the situation. One zombie was nearly 2 meters tall, possessing immense strength and a massive build. The other was slender, but its claws were as sharp as daggers. The tank-like zombie had incredible defense, while the agile one had high attack power but struggled to break through its opponent's thick hide. After a chaotic brawl, the tank used its brute force to send the agile zombie flying, finally crushing its head with a single, lethal blow. He watched as the victor reached into the shattered skull and pulled out a white golden nucleus. Their sheer power was honestly quite shocking to him. He felt relieved that he had chosen to stay indoors. It seemed this world was far more cruel than he had imagined. He couldn't afford to be complacent. Yet, as he watched the tank zombie hold that nucleus, a powerful, instinctive longing surged within his own chest. He wanted it. He sensed that the golden nucleus would be beneficial for his body. It seemed the entire battle had been fought just to claim that prize. We see the massive zombie swallow the white nucleus, beating its chest and roaring in a state of pure, primal excitement. It slammed its fists into nearby cars, and the ordinary zombies in the area, hearing the terrifying noise, began to scatter in every direction. They instinctively feared this evolved creature. He realized then that these nuclei were likely the key to enhancing a zombie's evolved abilities. The raw hunger he felt for the nucleus far surpassed any desire for flesh. If he could consume one, his power to control other zombies would surely grow. He guessed that after the blood moon, the entire world had entered a frantic peak of evolution. To be honest, it was a race for survival. Zombies and beasts were slaughtering each other to evolve, and human survivors would soon begin hunting these nuclei, eventually developing cultivation methods. As for Roashue, the peerless empress of the human race in her past life, she already possessed the ultimate technique, the glazed breathing method. Roashue understood that her zombie father, being a common low-level creature, would find it nearly impossible to survive this wasteland alone. She knew she had to increase her strength quickly to protect them both. Though she was currently just an infant, she could still practice her glazed breathing. Using the technique, she began to draw in the energy particles lingering in the air after the blood moon. As the cultivation method took hold, her tiny body began to tremble. Energy flowed slowly into her form. Roashue felt fortunate to have been reborn at the very start of the apocalypse, allowing her to utilize the glazed breathing method so early. A massive influx of energy surged through her, strengthening her bones and sharpening her weak mental powers. Meanwhile, he returned from downstairs to the bedroom. Seeing her body shaking, he mistakenly thought she had caught a cold and hurried to cover her with a blanket. Roashue was startled out of her meditative state. Seeing his worried expression, she found it quite amusing, yet she couldn't help but feel the warmth of a father's love from this zombie. In her past life, she had grown up in an orphanage. Having tasted only the coldness of the world before, this was the first time she felt such care. Once he saw that little Chi-Chi was fine, he began to think of a plan. He knew he had to deal with that tank zombie outside. Such a dangerous ticking time bomb had to be eliminated quickly. By evening, he sent out his first puppet. Controlled by his will, puppet number 1, the lion mascot, went to provoke the tank zombie while it was busy digesting its newfound power inside a shop. The puppet threw a flower pot. After hitting the tank zombie, the puppet turned and fled, successfully leading the monster into a shop rigged with gas canisters. Just as the lion puppet ducked inside, the tank zombie charged with a sudden burst of speed. Its massive frame smashed into the interior, instantly crushing his puppet into a pile of scrap and fluff. At that moment, puppet number 2 entered the shop, closed the door, and used a lighter to ignite the gas canisters. The tank zombie took the full force of the explosion. It let out a series of shrill, agonizing screams amidst the sea of fire. By the time it managed to struggle out of the shop, it collapsed right at the entrance. After the explosion, he quickly withdrew his consciousness from the puppets. He watched as the hulking zombie, now charred to a crisp, lay motionless on the ground. He waited for 10 minutes to ensure the zombie was truly dead before gathering his courage to approach. Upon getting closer, he saw the extent of the damage. The zombie was burnt beyond recognition, its body utterly destroyed. He swung his machete, using a great deal of strength just to hack through the back of its skull. Inside, he discovered a golden nucleus that was white with a hint of red. The temptation this nucleus held was far stronger than the pure white one he had seen before. Based on his observations, pure white nuclei were produced when zombies evolved by devouring their own kind. To be honest, it was a brutal cycle of consumption. This reddish nucleus was clearly a level higher. As other zombies began to be drawn toward the light of the fire, he quickly pocketed the prize and prepared to leave. He selected 2 zombies with intact limbs to serve as his new puppets. After securing the nucleus, he led his new servants back toward the residential complex. Back at the building, he stationed the new puppets as guards downstairs. He then went to the 3rd floor, and once he was sure it was safe, he could no longer suppress his inner longing. Driven by an intense longing for the golden nucleus, he swallowed it whole. As it refined his body, his skin began to shift further toward a human form. Beyond the improvement in his appearance, his physical strength and agility saw a slight increase. After a brief moment of dizziness, his mind became exceptionally clear and his senses grew sharper. Controlling zombies now felt effortless. He realized he could now manage 5 zombies simultaneously and had gained the ability to share their vision. This broke his previous limit of only being able to control puppets within his sight. Now, he could operate them remotely. After some testing, he found his mental range reached a limit of 1,000 meters. Within this area, he had no need to show his face at all to control his puppets, greatly enhancing his chances of survival. Meanwhile, Roashue heard the explosion from the shops and the screams of the evolved zombie. Being on the 7th floor, she wasn't worried about being spotted, but his long absence left her deeply anxious. She knew all too well that in her infant state, she stood no chance against an evolved zombie with enhanced combat power. She understood the extreme danger of such an encounter. She could only pray that she wouldn't lose this zombie father who had shown her such paternal love. She had intended to continue practicing the glazed breathing method, but her restless mind made it impossible. Just then, the sound of the door opening echoed through the house. Roashue breathed a sigh of relief, a faint smile appearing on her face. After all, only her zombie Father knew how to unlock and open that door. When he returned and saw Ruashue's smile, he felt a surge of warmth. Deep within, knowing his increased strength would allow him to protect her better, he happily went to the kitchen to prepare her milk. Watching her drink so contentedly, he felt as though his decaying body was radiating a new, powerful vitality. Over the next 2 days, he used his mental powers to control the lion puppet to scavenge for supplies nearby, using the lower floors as a warehouse. Besides collecting baby supplies and food, he also found many tools for dealing with zombies. Although these days were mostly a repetition of the same routine, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. After all, he could clearly feel himself becoming stronger with every passing hour. As for Ruashua, her days consisted of drinking milk and practicing the glazed breathing method. Occasionally, she heard faint sounds in the living room and, recalling the anomalies of the past few days, she guessed he had already encountered an extraordinary zombie with special evolved abilities. She knew well how powerful evolved zombies were. Their pressure and combat prowess far exceeded ordinary ones. And ordinary zombies, in this changed world, occupied the lowest rung of the hierarchy, facing constant threats from human survivors, fellow zombies, and mutated beasts alike. She felt deeply moved that he had never once considered abandoning her despite his own struggles. Comparing this to the darker side of humanity in the apocalypse, she realized how precious it was that her zombie father retained such a spark of humanity. After many days of cultivation, her mental strength had increased significantly. She could now launch silver needles at terrifying speeds, and with her time control abilities, she felt confident she could kill silently. But she wasn't satisfied yet. To survive this world, she needed to be stronger. Meanwhile, as he sent the lion puppet to search nearby buildings, he discovered a room where the original owner must have been a martial arts enthusiast, leaving behind a wealth of combat textbooks. These books detailed various close-quarters combat techniques. Since his physical fitness as an evolved zombie already far exceeded that of a normal human, and his body was no longer stiff, he found he could learn and execute complex fighting moves with surprising ease. While typical zombie attacks are primitive and crude, he realized that modern human combat techniques were far more scientific and effective. Even though his evolution wasn't focused solely on physical brawling, he believed these skills could bridge any gap in physical stats. He could even exploit the fact that zombies don't fear being bitten to use weapons with maximum efficiency. After mastering the basics through training, he brought the lion puppet to the 6th-floor living room and released his mental control, turning it into a live sparring partner. As the saying goes, a zombie who knows martial arts is truly unstoppable. However, through practice, he found that theory and solo drills were simply not enough to handle a real confrontation. Only actual combat could truly sharpen his sense of distance and timing, allowing him to grow into a truly skilled fighter. Furthermore, he discovered he could multitask, practicing his combat moves while simultaneously controlling the lion puppet to scavenge for supplies. By sharing the puppet's vision, he could keep a constant eye on the surrounding area. It was during one of these patrols that he spotted 2 zombies scavenging in a 3rd-floor apartment of Building 1. Suddenly, a blood-red figure appeared. Its speed was absolutely terrifying. If not for the tracks left on the ground, he might have thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. He carefully maneuvered the lion puppet to track the crimson shadow, and after a few minutes, he finally got a clear look at this zombie's form. The creature was utterly hideous, its skin peeling away to reveal a terrifying form. Its teeth and tongue had warped into something monstrous, while its limbs had mutated into the savage claws of a beast. It had lost the ability to stand upright, forced to crawl on all fours, yet it possessed unparalleled speed and explosive power. It could scale walls and traverse ceilings with ease. Faced with this crimson zombie, we see his lion puppet tremble with a very primal sort of fear. The zombie moved like a blur, instantly tearing apart the 2 puppets he was controlling. He was left wondering what kind of monster this truly was. Even after his consciousness returned to his body, he felt a lingering sense of dread. Some zombies were evolving abilities that defied all imagination. He realized his current strength was far from enough to face such a threat. Even if he sent all 5 puppets at once, they might be slaughtered in seconds. For now, he could only hope this crimson nightmare wouldn't wander into Building 5. Not wanting to waste a single moment, he spent every day honing his skills through relentless combat practice against zombies. A week later, in the 6th-floor living room, he faced 3 massive, hulking zombies at once. In that narrow space, he moved with a newfound fluidity, handling their coordinated assault with ease. He kept a constant watch for the movements of evolved zombies. Monsters like the Crimson One were too dangerous to provoke without sufficient strength. But the brutes and agile types he had encountered before were becoming easier to manage. Through these days of careful observation, he discovered that the most valuable evolution materials were found within the brains of these creatures. Meanwhile, in the 7th-floor bedroom, young Yin Rawashua had progressed significantly. Once exhausted by merely moving a needle, she could now make her infant body hover a few centimeters off the ground. To be honest, flight is a dream for almost every human being. While Rawashua couldn't truly fly yet, Her constant cultivation had finally granted her a small measure of self-defense. She had no idea, of course, that if the major survivor camps knew of her, they would flock to recruit her. An infant capable of levitation is, quite frankly, a miracle. After finishing his combat training on the 6th floor, he used his puppets to clear away the remains of the fallen zombies. Just as he was preparing to go upstairs to feed Chi-Chi, the puppet responsible for scavenging sent back a sudden, urgent mental pulse. Nearby, it had crossed paths with the very thing he had been searching for, an agile evolved zombie. It moved with terrifying speed, using its claws to pierce a car door, to execute a perfect drift as it chased down and killed a survivor. Seeing this, he realized his opportunity had finally arrived. Ever since he experienced the surge of power from devouring a gold core, he had been desperate to grow stronger. He immediately dispatched a lion puppet to track this agile evolved zombie. While one puppet kept a watchful eye on its movements, he summoned 4 more, all equipped with protective gear, to join the hunt. 5 puppets soon gathered. He had them disguise themselves as ordinary zombies, maintaining a careful distance as they slowly closed in like a semicircular net. The target was an agile zombie currently feasting on human remains. He chose this careful formation because he knew how dangerous its speed could be. To be honest, a reckless move could result in his entire puppet squad being wiped out. When they were only 10 meters away, he commanded all 5 puppets to charge at once. Though the agile zombie relied on its incredible reflexes to dodge most of the blows, his flanking strategy worked, and its back and right arm were sliced open. However, the cost was high. One puppet's axe became wedged in the creature's ribs, and the enraged agile zombie instantly tore its head to pieces. Reacting quickly, he used 2 puppets to draw its attention from the front, while the remaining 2 resumed their assault from the shadows. The monster managed to swat away the frontal attackers, but it couldn't evade a brutal horizontal slash to its waist. A massive chunk of flesh was torn away. In a final, desperate burst of speed, the wounded creature managed to crush the skull of yet another puppet. But the remaining 3 puppets were already upon it. The agile zombie simply couldn't dodge such a dense flurry of axe strikes, and was finally brought down. With the threat neutralized, he commanded his surviving puppets to extract the gold core from the creature's brain. After that, they made a swift retreat back to the safety of the residential complex. Once home, he stationed the puppets at the entrance and took the core for himself. Upon closer inspection, he saw it was a white core tinged with red, just like the one before. It seemed this agile zombie had also consumed a core of its own at some point. He swallowed the prize, feeling that familiar, overwhelming energy wash through his body. When the process ended, his strength had reached a significant new level. He could now control 10 puppets at once, and his mental reach had expanded to a staggering 3 kilometers. Fueled by the thrill of his rising power, he selected 4 particularly robust zombies from the surrounding crowd and equipped them with heavy gear. He had successfully formed a formidable new squad. Looking at them, he felt a surge of confidence, imagining the day he might lead a massive zombie army. With his powerful telekinesis and legion of puppets, he planned to conquer everything in his path. It was a bold vision, to say the least. Yet, he hadn't forgotten the Crimson Nightmare in Building 1. After today's battle, he realized that monster was even more terrifying than he had imagined. He knew too little about the monster to guarantee a victory, so he decided to wait a few days before sending his puppets to test its true strength. After all, this creature was like a ticking time bomb that gave him no peace of mind. Over the next 3 days, he transformed the 6th floor into a training room. By sparring with zombies, he discovered that his physical attributes had improved across the board after his evolution. He nodded with a sense of quiet satisfaction. This body of his finally looked like it belonged to a true survivor of the apocalypse. We see him crack a small smile, noting that the little one's appetite was growing by the day. After feeding her, he used scavenged toys to amuse little Chi-Chi. Yun Roashua watched her zombie father's clumsy attempts to play with her and felt momentarily speechless. On the surface, she appeared to be a mere infant. But inside, she was a mature, cold, and decisive empress. Still, since this was her zombie father's way of showing affection, she had to play along. She forced a smile, but hadn't expected that her cooperation would only make him try harder. Roashua's eyelids twitched in disbelief. To be honest, it was a bit much. She told herself to treat it as telekinetic training. Once their playtime ended, he decided it was finally time to test the Crimson Monster in Building 1. He selected a squad of tall, sturdy zombies from the crowd to serve as his puppets, arming each of them with a heavy fire axe. They looked imposing, but he felt they needed more. Remembering an electric bike shop on the corner that sold gear, he led his puppets there and broke in. He equipped every puppet with a full-face motorcycle helmet. A zombie's head is its fatal weakness, after all, which is a lesson he learned quite early. Even if their bodies were torn, as long as their heads remained intact, they could still swing an axe. With everything ready, he prepared for remote deployment. This newly outfitted puppet squad marched grandly toward Building 1. Since his mental range now reached 3 kilometers, and knowing he was no match in close combat, he chose to stay safely in Building 5 to command the squad as they cleared the first floor. They checked every room and corner, even keeping an eye on the ceilings to prevent an ambush from the wall-crawling Crimson Monster. Soon, the puppets had searched for entire floors, yet they still found no trace of the elusive crimson creature. What they didn't know was that the monster was clinging to a blind spot on the 5th floor like a spider, waiting for the puppets to ascend. The creature suddenly lunged, sending the puppet closest to the door flying with a single blow. Fortunately, the helmet saved it from instant destruction. He quickly commanded the group to counterattack, swinging their fire axes in unison. If Ruashua had been there, she surely would have recognized it instantly. We see that this creature is none other than a licker, a zombie that has undergone a terrifying evolution. In Ruashua's memories of her past life, these monsters caused devastating casualties among human survivors during the early days of the apocalypse. Now enraged, the licker's claws move with lightning speed, swatting away several puppets. Under his firm control, however, the puppets ignore their injuries and desperately grab hold of the monster's limbs as fire axes come crashing down. Though the licker is trapped in the circle, it manages to leap away, yet not before being struck multiple times. He tries a new tactic, commanding several puppets to strike the exact same spot repeatedly. Finally, through his precise manipulation, 3 puppets work together to sever one of the licker's arms. The wounded monster retreats to the ceiling. He orders the puppets to throw their axes, but the licker's speed is simply too great for them to track. Because these are low-level puppets, their strength and accuracy drop sharply at a distance. The licker shatters a window and escapes onto the building's exterior wall, vanishing in the blink of an eye. He curses himself for underestimating its strength. Despite his preparation, the creature still got away. To be honest, it was a frustrating result. This licker zombie is incredibly agile, capable of moving across the vertical outer walls of the building as if it were walking on perfectly level ground. If it decided to climb up from the outside, his defenses would be useless. He quickly composes himself and devises a new defensive plan, stationing 3 of his strongest, fully armed puppets to patrol Building 5. This way, even if the monster tries to sneak in, he will be notified immediately. Meanwhile, he sends other puppets out to search for more evolved zombies. Originally, the power he gained from consuming 2 gold cores had made him quite excited, but this crimson monster made him realize he was still just a small player in this dangerous world. We return to the 7th floor bedroom, where Ruashua is currently using her telekinesis to make 2 dolls dance through the air. As a former Empress, she naturally has no taste for such toys, but she didn't want his kindness to go to waste. Besides, she found that using the dolls to practice her mental powers was actually quite effective. Sensing his return, Ruashua quickly pulls the dolls into a hug. When he enters and sees her playing happily, his mood is instantly healed. He looks at the little one and thinks of how dark and broken this world has become, hoping that when she grows up, she won't be disappointed by the reality around her. He wants her to grow up as carefree as she seems right now. Deep down, he simply hopes that both of them can continue to survive together in this apocalypse. He stands there, quietly watching the bedroom door. He immediately turns his attention to the windows, heading out to gather wooden boards and nails to seal them. Ruashua watches her zombie father with a look of pure confusion. She hasn't been outside much these past few days, and now he is sealing the windows shut entirely. She wonders if this zombie father of hers has sensed the overwhelming power of the evolved zombies and is simply too afraid, hoping to hide away from the chaos of the outside world. To her, this seems like the most logical explanation. It appears her zombie father is a bit of a coward. However, she overlooks one simple possibility. He is doing all of this specifically to protect her. We see that after the blood moon, many purifiers have begun to emerge among the human survivors. At first, they fled in terror from ordinary zombies, but as time passed, even ordinary humans learned how to easily hunt these low-level creatures. Meanwhile, he remains focused, driving in nail after nail. After quite a while, he finally finishes reinforcing the windows, though he is careful to leave small gaps for light and ventilation. He wants to ensure their defense without forcing Ruashua to live in a depressing environment, while also buying himself time to react to that crimson monster. Over the next 3 days, the crimson creature doesn't reappear, but he keeps his puppets patrolling Building 5, refusing to let his guard down. Suddenly, a sharp mental fluctuation ripples through his mind. One of his puppets, searching for supplies in a shop 2 streets away, has encountered a group of human survivors. Initially, the survivors think it's just a normal zombie, but when the puppet turns around, they are gripped by terror. One particularly strong man named Taiju charges at the puppet, swinging a heavy iron pipe with all his might. He commands the puppet to fight back with its fire axe, but the moment they clash, he is genuinely surprised. He had specifically chosen puppets with strong, sturdy builds, and as we know, zombies naturally possess much greater physical strength than the average human. Yet, he hadn't expected this man's strength to be so immense. The raw power vibrating through that steel pipe actually causes the puppet's arms to go numb. Tieju's incredible force sends the puppet's axe flying out of its hands before he delivers a crushing blow. With a single strike, he smashes the puppet's head. Taiju stands over the fallen creature, feeling a bit puzzled by what he just saw. The world is becoming truly absurd if even zombies are starting to use weapons now. He wonders if this is some new type of evolved zombie. But he doesn't dwell on it for long, quickly calling his companions to move the supplies before an evolved monster arrives. Seeing Tieju's strength, After the zombie is crushed, the other companions begin scavenging for supplies, praising Taiju and saying they never would have found this much food without him. They boast that even an evolved zombie is nothing against Tieju's divine strength, just a single swing of his pipe. To be honest, they are simply desperate for a powerful protector in this apocalypse, so they resort to flattery. Taiju, of course, is quite pleased with their compliments. Meanwhile, he is genuinely surprised to encounter human survivors more than a month into the end of the world. Especially a man as physically powerful as Taiju. He suspects the man might be an evolved human, as ordinary people rarely possess such strength. Given the complexity of human nature, he worries that survivors might target his supplies, potentially endangering himself and little Roashua. He decides to stop sending his puppets to that area to avoid further encounters. After this brief episode with the survivors, several more days pass in a flash. We see that he has finally stopped gathering supplies because his puppets were simply too efficient. Every single room in Building 5 is now overflowing with a massive variety of resources. At the same time, Roashua has been spending her days on the bedroom bed, using her telekinetic powers to practice crawling and moving about. As her control over her body improves, her speed across the bed increases significantly. Finally, with the help of her telekinesis, she actually learns how to walk. Just then, he pushes the door open and enters, nearly dropping his jaw at the sight before him. The little girl is only a few months old. How could she possibly be walking upright? His initial shock quickly turns into pure joy. He had hoped she would adapt to life in the bedroom, but he never expected her to walk so soon. He carries Roashua to the living room, believing the flat floor will be better for her practice. Thanks to her telekinesis, she adapts quickly, though her physical strength is still limited. After a short while, she stops to rest. Assuming she is tired, he places her on the sofa before heading to the balcony with his steel machete. Since his body was purified after the evolution, his physical state is peak. As he swings the heavy blade through the air, it lets out a sharp, whistling sound. To be perfectly honest, his training consists mostly of mimicking simple patterns from his memories of old martial arts movies. Still, he believes that as long as he grows strong enough, even a common brick could become a deadly weapon. Roashua watches him in utter disbelief. She can't believe he is actually training to improve his strength, as she thought he was just a normal zombie. It is truly rare for a zombie to possess human consciousness and the ability to use weapons, giving them a massive advantage over lower-level creatures. However, having been a human empress in her past life, Yin Roashua is an expert in combat and martial arts techniques. To be perfectly honest, she finds his blade work to be complete rubbish, believing any skilled opponent could instantly defeat her zombie father. But seeing Roashua staring at him, he mistakenly assumes she is captivated by his skills and feels quite proud of himself. He begins to swing the blade with even more enthusiasm, and over the next few days, our story continues in the living room. Roashua practices walking while secretly honing her telekinetic control, all while he remains by her side as a constant companion. The little one grows steadier on her feet every day, looking like a true prodigy, but Roashua's inner sense of crisis only intensifies. After the Blood Moon mutation, zombies and beasts are evolving at a frantic pace, and she fears an ordinary zombie like him won't survive. She knows she must grow stronger quickly so she doesn't become a burden in this apocalypse. Meanwhile, as they both focus on their training, a sudden, furious roar echoes from outside the building. He immediately shifts his consciousness to the perspective of his lion puppets. In the complex's green belt, we see two zombies that mutated after the Blood Moon locked in a fierce, violent struggle. One is a massive tank-type zombie, nearly 2.5 meters tall, whose swinging fists create deep craters in the ground. The other is a creature he has encountered before, a stone iron piercer, moving with incredible speed across the terrain. Its limbs are like sharp scimitars, and these two powerful evolved zombies are fighting so intensely that neither can gain the upper hand. He feels a surge of excitement, realizing this is a golden opportunity with two evolved zombies exhausting each other at once. If he waits for them both to be wounded, he can step in and reap the rewards. Without hesitation, he heads out the door and downstairs. Roashua hears the commotion outside and is left utterly speechless. She has no idea he can control puppets. She thinks he's going to fight them directly. Since she still can't move freely, she can only stay inside and pray for his safety. Meanwhile, as he descends the stairs, he begins summoning all his lion puppets. These fully armed stone guardians quietly close in on the green belt as the battle rages on. After a grueling fight, both zombies are finally exhausted and broken, with the bladed monster tearing a limb clean off the tank zombie. The tank zombie finally collapses, dead, leaving the blood-colored monster as the battered victor. Just as it prepares to claim its prize, our stone lion squad suddenly closes in. The creature roars, attempting to drive the puppets away with its aura, but these stone guardians are completely immune to such intimidation. They simply don't care. The lions begin swinging their fire axes in a mindless, relentless assault. In this open space, the monster loses its agility, and after a moment's hesitation, it is surrounded. he successfully secures the energy cores from both evolved zombies. Overjoyed by this windfall, he commands his puppets to retreat quickly back to the safety of the complex. These two cores have already turned a deep, vibrant red. It is clear they have already consumed a significant number of lower-level creatures to reach this stage. Returning to the third floor, he can hardly wait to consume both cores at once. The surge of energy is far greater than anything he has felt before, but then, the most critical change occurs as a terrifying wave of mental power floods his mind. It is, quite frankly, far more than his current form can handle. He can't hold on for long and quickly loses consciousness. Up on the 7th floor, Yun Ruoxue is so anxious that she is practically rolling around on the sofa. After so much time without a sound, she has completely lost hope. She is certain he has died at the hands of those evolved monsters. Poor zombie father, she thinks. Why couldn't you have just waited for me a little longer? But in the middle of her grief, Ruoxue suddenly lifts her head as she senses something approaching. A smile instantly flashes across her face. She hops down from the sofa and runs toward him with wobbly, uncertain steps, crying out the word, Papa. He stands there frozen, as if struck by a bolt of lightning. Little Chi-Chi can actually speak. Having lived 2 lives without even a girlfriend, this is quite a shock. The strange sensation of suddenly being a father leaves him so excited that he is utterly at a loss. Even Ruoxue herself seems a bit stunned by the outburst. In her excitement, her inner thoughts slipped out before she could control them. However, she quickly accepts it. After all, possessing an empress's soul makes speaking easy enough. It was really just a matter of practicing her vocal cords after being reborn. He, of course, doesn't think about any of that. He simply believes his daughter is a genius. To him, Chi-Chi is a prodigy who taught herself to speak. He lets out 2 excited low growls to express his joy, though he is unfortunately still unable to use words. With this evolution complete, the number of lion puppets he can control has increased to 30. His mental range now radiates out to a staggering 8,000 meters. With this newfound strength, he immediately sets about expanding his stone army. Meanwhile, after filling her stomach, Ruoxue decides she is finished with formula. She opens her mouth to show off 2 rows of tiny baby teeth, making it very clear she no longer wants milk. For a moment, he feels a bit embarrassed by his own slow realization. It seems even little Chi-Chi understands her needs better than he does, and so he heads down to the 6th floor to start a fire and cook her some proper rice porridge. He mixes the formula and crushes the rice into a paste, but the little one simply takes the spoon and starts feeding herself. She even seems to find his clumsy efforts a bit lacking. It is as if she is saying, Dad, let me do it myself. Watching her eat so heartily, he can't help but feel a wave of emotion. To be honest, it's quite a sight. Our little Chi-Chi is finally growing up. With his strength increased, a bold new idea begins to take shape in his mind. Could he perhaps take control of an evolved zombie? The opportunity arrives sooner than expected. One of his lion puppets discovers a lone tank-type evolved zombie several kilometers away. Naturally, he decides to investigate. Leading his squad, he disguises himself as an ordinary zombie and slowly closes in. Once within 100 meters, he unleashes his mental power. The creature's mental defenses are, as expected, far stronger than a normal zombie's. He encounters significant resistance, but his evolved mental strength is far superior, and he quickly breaks through its guard. He successfully turns the creature into his newest puppet, naming her Dapao. This individual is exceptionally robust, with arms that look like solid iron cages. He finds 2 massive iron hammers from a hardware store, each weighing over 50 kilograms, for her to wield. When she swings them, the wind howls with terrifying force. Standing at the entrance of the complex, she looks like a legendary guardian deity. With Dapao on watch, the sense of security is absolute. Later, he recruits another ally. This one is an agile type evolved zombie he names Lightning. Extremely fast and skilled with dual blades, he perfectly compensates for Dapao's lack of speed. With one focused on offense and the other on defense, plus 20 ordinary lion puppets, he feels he could walk through this apocalypse unchallenged. Meanwhile, a new threat appears. While Dapao is out searching for supplies, she encounters a mutated giant dog. It is nearly 2 meters long, covered in hair that is both pitch black and incredibly stiff. Imagine a beast nearly 2 meters long. Its fur is hard as wire, and its body as thick and sturdy as a wild boar. It is a truly formidable sight. This is the first time he has encountered a mutated creature other than a zombie. He immediately commands Dapao to engage. With a single hammer blow, she shatters the beast's leg. She follows up with a finishing strike that crushes its skull completely. From the giant dog's head, he retrieves a white energy core. It seems mutated beasts have them too. He carries the carcass back to the complex and consumes some of the flesh to satisfy his hunger. It isn't exactly fine dining, but it serves its purpose. He feels his strength returning as the hunger fades. However, Yun Ruoxue is completely unaware of his recent hunt or his new acquisitions. Taking advantage of his absence, Ruoxue sneaks downstairs to explore. To her utter shock, she discovers that every floor from the 3rd to the 6th is packed with supplies. There are mountains of formula, bottled water stacked to the ceiling, and a massive hoard of baby products and food. It is an absolute treasure trove. She is left in a state of complete disbelief. Just how much has her zombie father managed to stockpile? The sheer scale of it is simply staggering. Beyond her amazement, she becomes even more certain of her theory. A normal zombie couldn't possibly move this many supplies. She suspects he has an earth-tunneling ability to transport goods quickly underground. When she reaches the first-floor balcony and sees DePau standing guard with her twin hammers, she is fully convinced that her father must be using that tunneling power to come and go. In reality, of course, DePau is simply another of his controlled lion puppets, but Yun Ruoxue has no idea. She secretly decides that once she is strong enough, she will eliminate this big brute. She wants to clear any obstacles for her father. Later, she finds the property contract and learns their exact location is within Zhonghai City. She quickly searches her memories of her past life, recalling two famous powerhouses here. One is a female officer with 9 lives, known as the Nine-Death Demon Cop, and the other is a mutated white bear that controls lightning, called the Thunderous Roar. If she can subdue the demon cop before she fully matures, it would be a massive help for the future. Not long after, a military helicopter flies over the city, dropping leaflets. The military has established a survivor base outside Zhonghai City. He watches them fall and casually tosses his aside. Being a zombie, a human base means nothing to him. Ruoxue, however, simply sneers and crumples her leaflet into a ball. She spent her previous life in those bases, and she remembers them as places full of darkness and injustice. To be honest, dealing with scheming humans is far worse than staying by her zombie father's side. While he continues to build his strength, a female officer from the local station, Su Muqing, leads several colleagues to the Sunshine Complex in search of a truck. She hopes to use it to lead survivors out of the city, but at the entrance, she encounters DePau. Muqing throws a stone at the creature to lure it away, but when it doesn't react, she draws her pistol and fires a shot. Seeing her draw a weapon on DePau, he is instantly enraged. Regardless of her intent, anyone firing at his puppets has only one fate. He commands DePau to block the bullet with a hammer, then immediately has her hurl the massive weapon toward Muqing. The officer never expected a zombie to use a projectile attack. Unable to dodge in time, she is struck by the hammer and killed instantly. The other officers who entered the complex are also eliminated by his lion puppets. From their bodies, he manages to scavenge several police pistols and ammunition. However, as night falls, something truly bizarre begins to happen. Su Muqing's lifeless body suddenly begins to resurrect in a crimson glow. Her broken bones and shattered limbs are restored to perfection, and her strength even seems to double. Watching through DePau's eyes, he is completely stunned by this scene. It seems the female officer has quite literally risen from the grave. Su Muqing herself is equally bewildered, but as she checks her body, she finds not a single scar. Instead, her strength and speed have increased significantly. She realizes she might be an evolver with the power of resurrection. On the following day, we see Muqing return to the complex once more. This time, she has brought a larger squad of fully armed officers. He is understandably furious, as he feels he spared her life once already. To be honest, her persistence is starting to feel like a personal provocation. He commands 3 evolved zombies to surround her, but Muqing's new strength is formidable. She moves with ease despite the triple threat. Even when he orders his marksman roommate to open fire, she somehow manages to dodge most of the bullets. Eventually, he finds an opening and strikes her down again, making sure to crush her completely this time to ensure there are no more surprises. But that night, she resurrects yet again, and her power doubles once more. It is as if this woman is playing with a cheat code, leaving him utterly speechless. The cycle of dying and returning stronger is a headache, but what truly bothers him is the sense that a hidden evolver is secretly assisting her. Whenever his attacks are about to land, they are halted for a split second by a mysterious force, a force that can even make bullets curve in midair. As it turns out, this hidden protector is none other than Yun Ruoxue. Through her observations, she had already suspected a zombie king was pulling the strings. Using a secret technique to transmit her voice directly, she reaches out to Muqing. She has a plan to eliminate the local zombie leader once and for all. She disguises herself as a mysterious master called the Invisible One. Muqing, believing she has found a like-minded ally, agrees to the joint operation. That evening, Muqing lures DePau away from the entrance and successfully storms the complex. However, he is waiting for her personally in front of Building 5. To protect little Chi-Chi on the 7th floor, he pulls all his puppets back to defend the building. He has no intention of letting anyone pass. Armed with a machete, he attacks with a cold, ruthless precision that bears no resemblance to his usual gentle nature. He is fighting to protect his home. From the 2nd floor of Building 1, Ruoxue watches closely, using her time control abilities to block his lethal strikes. She is careful, however, to only protect Muqing. She ensures Muqing isn't killed, but she won't allow the officer to harm him either. This leaves Muqing completely confused about whose side this Invisible One is actually on. Every time she tries to strike the zombie, she is blocked. Ruoxue sends her a single, chilling message: "You are not allowed to touch this zombie." The battle grows increasingly desperate as Muqing tries to force her way into Building 5. He stands his ground, letting out a series of piercing, mournful cries. His roars carry a desperate fury, the kind born from a need to protect his kin, and we can almost feel the temperature in the complex drop as Yun Ruoxue watches. Finally, the truth begins to dawn on her. As Mooching charges toward Building 5, every zombie in the vicinity rushes frantically to defend that specific location. They aren't protecting some distant zombie king. They are protecting the little girl on the 7th floor, and the one giving the orders to defend her at all costs is her own zombie father. Could it be that her father is the very zombie king she's been looking for? In this moment, every clue finally clicks into place. The realization hits her hard. The man she has been watching is indeed her father, and he is the powerful leader she intended to hunt down. She feels a wave of self-reproach, realizing how foolish she had been. Ruashu nearly ended up hunting her own father's core just to feed him later. Once she understands the situation, she immediately stops assisting Mooching. Without that secret support, Mooching's momentum vanishes in an instant. He takes advantage of the opening, commanding 3 evolved zombies to join him in a brutal counterattack, treating the officer like a literal punching bag. Mooching's last thought before losing consciousness is a bitter one, feeling utterly betrayed by her mysterious, invisible ally. He eventually chokes her into a faint. Afterward, he leaves her a note with a chilling ultimatum. She must stay alive, for if she dies, everyone at the police station will be buried with her. Knowing Mooching's self-sacrificing nature, he knows she will comply. She could never live with the guilt of others dying because of her. Life soon settles into a quiet routine. Every day, he spars with his evolved zombie, Lightning, to sharpen his skills. He even finds a learning machine and flashcards for little Chi-Chi. The little one is growing at an incredible rate, already learning to read, write, and do math. To him, his daughter seems to possess the talent of a genius. Meanwhile, Ruashua has to pretend to learn along with the machine, mimicking basic sounds while feeling a deep sense of helplessness inside. In her past life, she was a top-tier graduate student, yet here she is, forced to repeat infant education. Every day while he is out, she sneaks down to visit Mooching. The 2 women actually get along quite well. Mooching, having no defenses against such an innocent-looking girl, shares almost everything about herself. Ruashua, however, is secretly calculating how to recruit this woman. After all, Mooching has the potential to become a powerhouse in the future. He notices that Chi-Chi enjoys chatting with Mooching and doesn't object. He figures having a human to interact with is good for the girl's development. However, he isn't taking any chances. Every time he leaves, he makes sure Mooching's iron chains are securely locked. And just to be safe, he assigns Lightning number 1 to keep a very close eye on their prisoner. While Lightning kept a watchful eye, news suddenly arrived one day of a terrifying new presence on the distant streets, a Tier 2 tyrant zombie. This monster's arms had completely transformed into lethal claws, possessing strength and speed that were, to be honest, utterly nightmare-inducing. We see a human evolver being hunted and driven into a desperate retreat. It's none other than Tai Zhu, the strong man who once crossed paths with him. The tyrant's wounds actually healed themselves, making Tai Zhu's heavy strikes useless. Eventually, the man barely escaped with his life by ducking into a narrow alley. He realized this tyrant was far too strong for a direct confrontation, but he had a much better plan in mind. He decided to use a bit of strategy. He commanded Lightning to lure the tyrant toward the police station, just as Mooching was returning from a supply run and spotted the beast. The tyrant was lured into a trap at a gas station, which erupted into a massive inferno in an instant. The monster struggled out of the sea of fire, charred black from head to toe, yet somehow, miraculously, it was still alive. However, its injuries were severe, and he immediately ordered EMPRESS and Lightning to charge. A crippled tyrant stood no chance against them. The beast couldn't withstand the frantic swings of EMPRESS' 1-ton steel club and was soon beaten down, unable to even stand back up. Lightning seized the opening to finish the tyrant with his steel blade. Upon retrieving the Tier 2 golden core, he was absolutely overjoyed. But this time, he didn't rush to consume it. He first prepared dinner for little Chi-Chi and set up the perimeter defenses properly. Only then did he head over to Building 4 to swallow the core. The sheer, overwhelming surge of energy began to transform him immediately. He successfully broke through to Tier 3, and his physical stats underwent a qualitative leap. His mental power, meanwhile, increased several times over. His control range expanded from 10,000 meters to dozens of kilometers, allowing him to command hundreds of ordinary zombies and Tier 2 evolvers with ease. He could now outpace agility-type zombies like Lightning and physically overpower tank types like Depang. He had become a true force of nature. Finally, he felt like a true survivor of the apocalypse. Not long after reaching Tier 3, he managed to subdue another massive Tier 2 tank zombie. This one was as large as a small car, so he named him EMPRESS and equipped him with a metal staff weighing over a ton. One swing from EMPRESS could turn a car into scrap metal, and with him guarding the gate, even evolved zombies didn't dare approach. Meanwhile, Ruashua was also secretly breaking through to Tier 3. After her advancement, her telekinetic powers reached a whole new level of strength. Her enhanced telekinesis allowed her to control iron nails, launching them at high speeds which, combined with her time control abilities, could silently take a life. In this entire apocalyptic world, she was now among the top tier of human powerhouses. Meanwhile, he noticed a manual titled Bloodslaying Saber had appeared at his feet. He assumed some mysterious master had left this secret technique behind and began to study it, never realizing that Ruashua had actually written it herself. She had scribbled it in a notebook and tossed it to him. The technique used blood as a guide to refine a killing weapon that, once mastered, required no physical strength. The aura of the bloodslay itself became the world's strongest blade, and his combat power improved drastically. Though, to be honest, peace never lasts long here. The quiet was soon broken when a 5-person team of evolvers arrived from a survivor base to scavenge for supplies in Shanghai City. They quickly discovered that all the resources near the Sunshine apartment complex had been completely cleared out by someone else. By tracking his puppet-driven vehicles, they found the complex and scaled the walls under the cover of night, unaware that they were being watched. The moment their feet touched the ground, he had already detected them, and his army of puppet zombies, including Lightning and Air Pang, surrounded them instantly. Lightning moved like a blur, killing one evolver in a heartbeat, while the Pang's twin hammers sent 2 melee-type evolvers flying backward. Amidst the chaos, he stepped in personally, using a single horizontal strike from his blood-slaying saber to cut down the last fleeing evolver. After searching the bodies, he found IDs from a survivor base and realized that human factions were developing much faster than he had anticipated. Knowing the Sunshine Complex would eventually be exposed, he decided it was time to move to the Qingshui farm on the outskirts of the city. The farm offered open space, arable land, and distance from human factions, with plenty of nearby zombies to replenish his puppet army. Most importantly, it would provide a better environment for little Chi-Chi, who couldn't stay locked inside a concrete building forever. She needed sunlight. She needed fresh air and vegetables, and speaking of vegetables, he felt a pang of guilt realizing how limited the little girl's diet had been. Living on nothing but milk powder and fried rice, she hadn't seen a green leaf in ages. At the farm, his puppets could work the fields for her. He wanted her to have fresh fruit, but before leaving, there was one loose end to handle, Mooching, whose resurrection ability was quite troublesome. He couldn't quite trust her, but since they were leaving anyway, he decided to simply let her go so they would never cross paths again. He shared the news of the move with little Chi-Chi, who nodded quietly before asking if the older sister would be coming along with them. Given Mooching's personality, she couldn't simply abandon the survivors at the police station to leave with them, and Ruashua took advantage of a moment when he wasn't looking. She secretly slipped a small note into Mooching's hand with the words Qingshui Farm written on it. Before leaving, Mooching turned to Ruashua with a question. She asked if Ruashua still remembered their promise, to which Ruashua replied with a smile, telling her that if she ever discovered this world, wasn't nearly as beautiful as she imagined, and if she ever grew tired of protecting everyone else, she should remember to come and protect her instead. When Mooching finally limped back to the station, she was met with a scene that shattered her entire world. The very survivors she had fought so hard to protect had descended into cannibalistic monsters, murdering every officer who refused to join their depravity. They had even killed Mooching herself, but she resurrected for a 3rd time, her power surging once more as she personally executed every last traitor. She left none alive, even as the last young man knelt begging for mercy, claiming he was a good person who only wanted to survive. As Mooching turned to leave, the click of a pistol hammer echoed behind her. She lunged like lightning, shattering the man's ribs with a single blow. She screamed, asking why they had to lie to her, and looking at the field of corpses, her heart turned to ash as she remembered Ruashua's warning. She wondered if these people were ever truly worth protecting in the first place. To be honest, such vile creatures hardly deserved her mercy. Looking down at the note for Qingshui Farm, Mooching took one final look at the station she had intended to serve for a lifetime and vanished into the night. She whispered that she was coming for little Chi-Chi. On the day of the move, 5 heavy trucks rolled out from the Sunshine Complex in a grand procession. The driver's seats were occupied entirely by zombie chauffeurs, followed by a massive fleet of heavy trucks stretching back as far as the eye could see. As they departed the complex, the zombie drivers led a terrifying army of hundreds of fully armed puppets, creating a sight unlike any other. The spectacle of zombies driving trucks was enough to make any survivor's jaw drop in pure disbelief. Imagine, if you will, seeing that on your morning commute. One evolver scavenging for supplies in a nearby shop watched in shock as the heavy trucks roared past, driven by hideous, rotting faces. He questioned his own sanity, wondering if he was hallucinating zombies behind the wheel. Along the way, the commotion naturally attracted more evolved undead. He welcomed them all, using his telekinesis to seize control and recruit them. Far from losing members, his puppet army only grew larger as they traveled. However, as they passed near the Shanghai City Zoo, a massive, golden-scaled Tier 2 mutant python lay coiled across the street, blocking their entire path. The beast blocked the entire road, stretching over 20 meters with scales shimmering like polished gold. It instantly swallowed 2 of our scouting line puppets whole. He quickly commanded Air Pang to charge forward with a steel club, striking the python's head to daze it while the Pang and the other tank zombies. blocked the flanks to prevent the serpent from escaping. Meanwhile, the agile-type zombies swarmed the creature, their steel blades relentlessly carving into its massive body. At the critical moment, a tyrant zombie leaped from a nearby building, driving its claws into the beast's vital spot to tear open a massive wound. Airpang followed up by crushing the python's skull, and after retrieving the Tier 2 gold box, he decided to let Airpang consume it. Boxes below Tier 3 were of little use to him now, but they could make his puppet stronger. He preferred a small, elite force of high-tier undead. Ruashua stared at the python's enormous carcass, her eyes sparkling with a hunger that was almost comical. To be honest, she looked quite impressed. She begged her father for snake meat, as the little girl was growing tired of a daily diet consisting only of powdered milk and fried rice. Seeing such a massive snake was simply too much of a temptation for her to resist, and she pleaded with him once again for a taste. He wasn't sure if mutant meat was safe for humans, so he decided to wait until he could find a survivor to act as a test subject. He promised to cook it for her once he confirmed it was safe. Ruashua was disappointed, but she understood her father's cautious nature. Deep down, she knew mutant meat was actually a powerful tonic, but she had no way to explain that knowledge without revealing her secrets. The convoy pressed on as the city's skyscrapers faded away, replaced by the desolate but wide-open spaces of the countryside. We see him check the map. They were only 10 minutes away from Qingshui Farm. The evening sun began to stain the sky a deep, bloody crimson as the landscape blurred past. He looked at little Chi-Chi, who was leaning quietly against the window, the glow of the setting sun reflected in her wide, curious eyes. This was her first time seeing the world outside the Sunshine Complex since her rebirth, and he reached out to gently pinch her small cheek. Chi-Chi looked up with a sweet, innocent smile and remarked on how big the world was. And yes, the world was indeed vast. It was also incredibly dangerous, but he felt that as long as Chi-Chi was by his side, surviving in this broken world actually had a purpose. On the distant horizon, the silhouette of a sprawling farm appeared through the sunset haze. This was to be their new home, Qingshui Farm. But dozens of miles behind them, in the ruins of Zhanghai City, a figure radiating a terrifying aura was already beginning to follow their trail. Following the tire tracks with relentless speed, the gentle kindness in Su Muqin's eyes had completely vanished, replaced by a cold and absolute determination. Yet, whenever she thought of the little girl who had smiled at her while clutching a milk bottle, her lips would unconsciously curl into a faint smile. We returned to the convoy as they finally reached the outskirts of Qingshui Farm, guided by the map through the winding forest paths. After driving for a while, the main gate of the farm finally comes into view, marked by a heavy steel entrance and a perimeter of wooden stakes. Barbed wire fences stretched out from the gate, adorned with high-voltage warning signs, though the wire itself showed signs of being forcibly breached. Sitting in the truck, he surveyed the area with satisfaction. Qingshui Farm was secluded and quiet, making it far less likely to attract unwanted attention. The grounds were much larger than the Sunshine Complex, providing more than enough space for him, Chi-Chi, and his massive army of lion puppets. Most importantly, the atmosphere wasn't nearly as oppressive, making it a perfect place for the little one to grow up. "Dad, are we there yet?" Ruashua asked. She stretched lazily as he nodded, immediately sending a pair of lion puppets through the broken fence to scout the farm's interior. As soon as they entered, his brow furrowed. The farm was covered in dried, dark brown bloodstains. He focused his search on the vegetable gardens. To his disappointment, the crops were entirely destroyed, and the ground was covered in massive footprints, suggesting a mutant animal was lurking nearby. Just then, the sounds of fighting and animalistic roars echoed from within. He commanded the puppets to investigate the poultry breeding area. There, they discovered a mutated giant bull. Quite absurdly, this herbivore had grown fangs more terrifying than those of a lion or a tiger. It was busy devouring the carcass of an unknown animal. It seems that in the apocalypse, even bulls have developed a taste for meat. The giant bull charged the moment it spotted the puppets. This beast had already reached Tier 2, making it far too strong for ordinary lion puppets to handle. He deployed Airpang and Tyrant 1 to meet the challenge. Airpang swung his club, striking the bull's head hard enough to make it see stars. Tyrant 1 seized the opening, using its powerful claws to tear a massive wound into the creature's side. The bull's hide had evolved to be incredibly tough, but since the beast lacked the wit to dodge, the outcome was inevitable. After several rounds, it finally collapsed as Tyrant's claws pierced its skull, allowing them to retrieve a Tier 2 gold box that was nearly orange. With the bull dealt with, the search continued. Near the western fish pond, he noticed a very wide trail of something crawling along the shore. As he maneuvered a lion puppet near the water's edge, a massive snapping turtle suddenly lunged from the depths and bit the puppet's leg clean off. The creature's shell was incredibly hard. When the puppet struck it, the recoil was so violent it actually snapped the puppet's own wrist. He decided not to kill it just yet, opting instead to leave 2 lion puppets on guard to ensure the beast stayed in the water. He figured that once he confirmed mutant meat was safe to eat, this ancient turtle would make a fine, nutritious meal for little Chi-Chi. After a thorough sweep of the grounds to ensure total safety, he finally led Chi-Chi by the hand into their new sanctuary. Ruashua looked around with wide, curious eyes, wondering if this beautiful place would truly be her and her father's new home. Her heart was full of anticipation as they settled in, while he immediately turned his focus toward fortifying their defenses. Pang took his post at the south gate with his massive club, while Lightning 1, 2, and 3 led squads to guard the other perimeters. With Depang and Tyrant 1 acting as Chi-Chi's personal bodyguards, he felt a deep sense of pride as the farm became an impenetrable fortress. Watching Chi-Chi sleep peacefully, he whispered a promise that Qingshui Farm would be their safe haven from the chaos outside. By the time the little one woke up the next morning, he had already prepared breakfast, complete with a plate of fresh fruit from the northern orchard. Outside, fully armed puppets patrolled the farm in perfect order, a display of control that far surpassed any ordinary zombie king. The little girl hugged his leg, begging to go explore, and he naturally gave in, leading her out toward the vegetable gardens. Chi-Chi was absolutely stunned to see zombies actually working the land. To be honest, it was a rather surreal sight for anyone. Having grown up in the countryside, he felt confident he could restore the ruined fields using the skills he learned from his grandparents. Meanwhile, he fed the 2 Tier 2 gold boxes he had collected to Pang, who promptly evolved into a Tier 3 powerhouse. Pang's body swelled to the size of a truck, and thick, black scales began to grow over his skin, making him completely bulletproof. He tested the scales with a machete, but the blade left only a faint scratch. Pang had become a literal main battle tank. With such a formidable general guarding the gate, he realized he had found a new path to power. If high-tier zombies were rare, he would simply create them. Chi-Chi hadn't been idle either, as she had secretly slipped away to the fish pond to visit that mutated old turtle once again. For 3 consecutive days, he fed the beast mutated python meat laced with his own blood, and on the 3rd day, he performed an ancient secret technique. Using a beast-taming art from a hidden realm in his past life, he formed a contract with the giant turtle, allowing him to issue simple commands or communicate. He even taught the old turtle a specialized breathing technique, intending to raise it into a powerful guardian like the legendary black tortoise of his past life. We see that he remained completely unaware of these deeper plans, simply assuming that little Chi-Chi enjoyed having the old turtle as a pet. He decided to let her keep it, and soon after, he began building a small amusement park for Chi-Chi right there on the farm. He brought back a carousel and other rides from the city, and since there was no electricity, he simply had his zombies power them by hand. When Chi-Chi saw the toys, she didn't actually have much interest in them, but she knew this was her father's way of showing his love. She played along to make him happy, but surprisingly, having never known a carefree childhood as an orphan in his past life, his own inner child began to wake up. Before long, he was the one having the time of his life. If we ignore the zombies pushing the carousel, it was a truly heartwarming scene. However, while Lightning 1 was busy transporting the equipment, an awakened evolutionist named Li Mo had been watching them from the shadows. Using his invisibility powers, Li Mo followed the truck back to Qingshui Farm, where the sight of the interior nearly caused his worldview to collapse. He was stunned to find a human girl living peacefully among a horde of zombies, and he quickly jumped to a very dangerous conclusion. He guessed that Chi-Chi was the one controlling the undead army, and a dark greed took hold of him as he plotted to kidnap her. Li Mo intended to seize the zombie legion for himself, but as he crept invisibly into Chi-Chi's bedroom and raised his dagger, he suddenly froze in place. Chi-Chi had activated her time-stop ability. She leaped up, delivered a stinging slap that sent him flying, and then used a secret soul technique. She etched a blood-red rune into his mind, gaining absolute control over his life and death. "Do you want to live?" she asked, "or die?" Li Mo didn't hesitate for a second. Faced with the terrifying power of the blood rune that now dictated his very existence, he knew his life was no longer his own. He chose to submit immediately, and Chi-Chi ordered him to infiltrate the Jianghai City survivor base as a spy to report back regularly. Our protagonist remained blissfully unaware of his daughter's secret operations, seeing only a happy little girl playing in the fields every day. Sometime later, while he was out harvesting evolved zombies to collect gold boxes, he unexpectedly encountered a familiar face on a nearby street. It was Su Muqin, and he couldn't help but wonder what on earth this woman was doing here. After the chaos at the police station, she had been searching for him. She had followed his trail all this way, looking utterly disheveled after being relentlessly harassed by a vengeful shield zombie until she was on the verge of a breakdown. He knocked her unconscious and secured her with iron chains near the slide in the amusement park. This time, however, Su Muqin's personality seemed to have undergone a massive shift. After experiencing the cold betrayal of the survivors at the police station, her outlook on humanity had darkened significantly. Even she had to admit that living with a zombie king was, ironically, far more comfortable than being among other humans. Meanwhile, our protagonist continued to grow his power. He scoured the Jiangnan district for evolved zombies, using the gold boxes he found to feed and upgrade his legion of Tier 2 lion puppets. Their numbers soon grew to over 30. One night, after hunting mutated beasts on Mount Huanglong, he finally managed to secure a Tier 3 gold box. Combined with the steady harvest from his zombie farm at the stadium, he finally gathered enough resources to break through to Tier 4. To be honest, it was a long time coming. He consumed 4 Tier 3 gold boxes at once, and his spiritual power exploded instantly, increasing his range of control several times over. With his control range now exceeding 50 kilometers, his physical body underwent a total transformation. Except for his dark red pupils, he looked exactly like a living human. In one fell swoop, he cultivated 4 Tier 4 lion puppets. At the same time, we see that Yin Ruoxue had also secretly broken through to Tier 4 herself. Her telekinetic powers surged, allowing her to fly for long periods and cast various elemental secret arts. She even used a spirit technique to control small bees. She used them to monitor the farm, and while he wasn't looking, she applied a blood chain technique to the bloodthirsty demon vines surrounding the perimeter. These vines were mutated plants he had transplanted from Mount Huanglong. They could drain the blood and flesh from any living creature in seconds. While they ignored zombies entirely, he had planted them a kilometer away as a defense line. Now, thanks to her blood chain, that line was under her absolute control. The defense line had become a deadly weapon she could manipulate at will. But a crisis was approaching as the Zhanghai survivor base grew restless over the rising zombie threat. The authorities officially announced the concept of a zombie king. Wang Zheng's previous encounter in the Jiangnan district had caught the attention of the high-ranking officials. They dispatched a reconnaissance team of invisible evolvers, including Li Mo, to investigate. Sensing Li Mo's approach, Yun Ruoxue flew out of the farm under the cover of night. She met him and ordered him to report back that no zombie king was found. He even killed the disobedient team leader and used a soul tool to control the others. However, Wang Zheng was incredibly sharp. Sensing something was wrong with the returning stealth team, he set a trap and used hypnosis to begin an interrogation. The soul suppression device activated, and 4 invisible intruders dropped dead on the spot. Wang Zheng was shocked, but this confirmed his worst fears. He was now certain a zombie king was lurking in the Jiangnan district. When the news reached the base, the High Commander was absolutely furious. He immediately ordered 3 elite combat teams to be deployed for a high-stakes mission. Their objective was to capture the threat in Jiangnan. Meanwhile, Yin Ruoxue felt the sudden snap of the soul array. She knew Li Mo and the others were dead, meaning their secret was out. A storm was coming, but she didn't panic. To be honest, she felt ready. As long as the humans didn't send a full-scale military force, these evolver teams were no match for her and her father. She focused entirely on her training. If she could just reach Tier 5, even a modern army's heavy weaponry wouldn't be enough to stop them. We see her pushing her limits. While our protagonist hunted beasts on Mount Huanglong to gather gold boxes for his puppets, the 3 elite teams landed on the outskirts of Jiangnan. Wang Zheng took overall command, with captains Li Feng and Zhang Hai assisting him. Their team included an evolver codenamed Falcon. Falcon shared a visual link with a mutated black eagle, and it didn't take long for him to find something truly bizarre. Yes, a zombie was driving a truck. He watched as an evolved zombie navigated the city streets, transporting mutated beast meat to feed the massive horde at the stadium. Wang Zheng gave the order to tail the truck at all costs. Unaware of the eyes in the sky, the protagonist finished the feeding and drove back to the farm. High above, the black eagle followed the truck like a silent shadow. It trailed the vehicle all the way to the perimeter of the Qingshui farm. Through the eagle's eyes, Falcon took in the entire layout of the farm. He had found it. The target was finally in sight. The zombie drove the truck right into a suburban farm. Falcon reported in a hushed, tense voice. He noted that the defenses were incredibly tight. Beyond the walls lay a massive field of blood-red vines, and standing guard at the gate was a creature of nightmares. It was a giant zombie, nearly 2 stories tall. Seeing this through the link, the faces of Wang Zheng and the other captains turned pale. The zombie king's lair was right there in that farm. Zhang Hai swallowed hard, staring at the massive guardian at the entrance. That big guy had to be at least a Tier 3 tank-type zombie, and its defensive power would be staggering. But that wasn't all Falcon saw. Several more massive evolved zombies were patrolling the interior. Their auras so powerful, they were likely all Tier 3 as well. This was going to be difficult. However, Falcon couldn't see the full picture yet. The Black Eagle wasn't flying low enough to reveal everything. What should they do? Should they attack immediately? Li Feng frowned as he asked, but Wang Zheng shook his head. The risk was simply too great without more intel. He decided to send the information back to the base and let the High Command decide their next move. Besides, those blood-red vines looked suspicious. They seemed like mutated plants, likely a defense line set up by the Zombie King. And what about that mysterious little girl? If this farm was indeed the Zombie King's lair, she was likely inside. But the girl wasn't the biggest threat right now, the king was. If they accidentally alerted him, they would all die right there. After some discussion, the 3 captains decided to hold their position. They transmitted the farm's location and defense details back to Zhanghai base. Soon, the report reached the hands of the High Commander. Inside the meeting room, the atmosphere turned heavy once again. Wang Zheng's team had confirmed the location, but the defenses were formidable. There were at least 3 Tier 3 evolved zombies acting as guardians, not to mention the unknown mutated plants forming a perimeter. Tier 3 zombies? The High Commander's brow furrowed deeply. He asked how many Tier 3 evolvers the base currently had available. The answer was grim, fewer than 10, and they were scattered across various posts. It would be nearly impossible to mobilize them all at once. Silence fell over the room. Everyone understood that with the base's current strength, a frontal assault on such a stronghold was suicide. Their chances of winning were slim to none. The commander finally made a decision. They could not use brute force. They would increase surveillance to learn the Zombie King's patterns while requesting reinforcements from the capital. They also needed more high-tier evolvers. Until help arrived, they couldn't afford to alert the enemy. However, there was something they didn't know, and it was a rather big detail. Pang, the guardian at the gate, was already Tier 4. Combined with our protagonist's own power, the farm actually boasted 6 Tier 4 combatants. The humans were still using Tier 3 standards to evaluate a much greater threat. Back at the farm, the protagonist finished his day of hunting. He returned home and prepared a lavish dinner for Chi-Chi. She ate happily, smiling at him with a few grains of rice stuck to her cheek. Su Muqing also sat quietly, eating the food Chi-Chi had brought her while stealing glances at the man before her. She was confused. The Zombie King had changed again. If she didn't look closely, she would have thought he was a living human. Deep down, she was truly shocked. A startling theory crossed her mind. Could this Zombie King eventually evolve back into a living human? That night, Chi-Chi suddenly paid her a visit. She asked Su Muqing a difficult question. If humans came to attack her father, which side would she choose? Su Muqing fell silent. The silence stretched on for a long time without an answer. We see that Su Muqing simply couldn't find the words to respond. Chi-Chi didn't seem to mind. However, as she turned to leave, she muttered that it didn't matter, as talking to her was useless anyway. Su Muqing sat powerlessly on the bed, watching Chi-Chi's retreating figure. Her heart raced. Humans and the Zombie King were destined to be enemies. But then, she remembered her treatment at the police station. She compared it to this farm, where Chi-Chi brought her food and conversation every day. The Zombie King treated her like a pet on a leash, yes, but he had never truly harmed her. Suddenly, she felt her own internal conflict was almost laughable. Su Muqing lay back on the bed, staring at the slide above her through a sleepless night. Meanwhile, dozens of kilometers away on a high ridge, Wang Zheng's black eagle continued to circle over Qingshui Farm. Falcon suddenly opened his eyes and reported that a truck was leaving the farm. It was heading toward Mount Huanglong again. Wang Zheng nodded, instructing him to keep recording every movement, departure time, and pattern. They needed to log every route and return time. More importantly, they had to find a way to see into the core area of the farm. They needed to know exactly where the Zombie King's true body was. High above, the Black Eagle circled silently, taking in every detail of Qingshui Farm. Down below, Yun Ruoxue, our little Chi-Chi, was swinging back and forth. Her white skirt fluttered in the wind, a bright smile on her face. It seemed the immediate crisis had been handled. Leaning against the slide, Su Muqing noted that Chi-Chi had finally come outside today. Yun Ruoxue nodded. In her mind, if Zhanghai Base sent people now, they would simply be walking to their deaths. Su Muqing asked with a hint of hope if the girl would be coming out every day from now on. To be honest, staying alone in the amusement park was becoming quite stifling. Yun Ruoxue nodded seriously. She had a plan. If she wanted to win over this legendary officer, she needed to build a bond. Suddenly, Su Muqing said firmly that she would help Chi-Chi and her father. Yun Ruoxue realized this was the answer to the question she had asked the other day. It was a surprising response, considering Su Muqing's background. After all, she was loyal to the authorities and valued protecting survivors above her own life. When asked why, she simply said she had made a promise. Su Muqing spoke with great solemnity, explaining that she believed the Zombie King possessed human consciousness and had never truly slaughtered humans. With little Chi-Chi as his anchor, the Zombie King remained non-aggressive. However, if humans ever threatened her, no one could predict his fury. Meanwhile, the Black Eagle followed the truck all the way out of Jiangnan City, arriving at the skies above the suburban farm. Through the eagle's eyes, Falcon took in the entire farm, but what shocked him most was a little girl playing on a swing. Beside her, a human woman leaned against a slide, chatting away. Falcon immediately reported finding the mysterious girl to the captains. He added that a human woman was with her. When the news reached them, the three captains looked at each other, and Wang Lei spoke up. He wondered aloud if this little girl could actually be the Zombie King. Suddenly, Yun Ruoxue felt the uncomfortable sensation of being watched. Secretly, her mental power surged outward like a tide, and she discovered a black eagle circling overhead. This was no wild creature. It was clearly a contracted pet belonging to an awakened. Yun Ruoxue quickly realized that this wasn't just a stray mutant beast. She understood immediately. The right-wing faction from Zhanghai Base had arrived. Without hesitation, she launched a mental strike. An invisible arrow pierced the eagle's brain, causing it to falter. Falcon, assuming it was merely exhausted, hastily recalled his pet. Yun Ruoxue smiled knowingly and took control of a sparrow to follow them. The bird trailed them to a ravine outside the city area. There, she located 3 teams of awakened. Through the sparrow, she overheard their entire plan for a night raid, which was bold, to say the least. The most absurd part was that these people actually mistook her for the Zombie King. Once her consciousness returned, she ran straight to her father. Pointing to the sky, she cried out that she had seen flying people. It seemed the human awakened had finally discovered our farm. After confirming the details with Chi-Chi, the Zombie King realized the farm's location was compromised. His mood grew heavy at the thought of these intruders. He immediately recalled his entire army of lion puppets. All four puppets were gathered around the house to protect Chi-Chi. Su Muqing also sensed the shift in the air and asked Chi-Chi what was happening. Well, it was the usual trouble, human awakened looking for a fight. Su Muqing asked if Chi-Chi could convince her father to unbind her so she could help. To be honest, she wanted to prove her loyalty. Yun Ruoxue shook her head with a smile, saying she wasn't needed, yet as her father could handle it. As night fell, he sat waiting in the living room. We see the Zombie King closing his eyes, focusing his mind to monitor every corner of the farm through the eyes of his lion puppets. 2 kilometers away, in the dense woods, 3 teams of awakened finally reveal themselves. Wang Lei warns everyone to be careful as they approach their destination, his expression grim and serious. High on a branch, a tiny bee watches them, or rather, Yun Ruoxue watches through it. She notes with a flicker of disdain that the fools have finally arrived to meet their end. As the 3 teams reach the wall of bloodthirsty vines, they crouch down to cut through them. In that exact moment, the vines lash out, piercing through 3 men instantly. The plants begin a frenzied feast on their flesh and essence. Wang Lei realizes too late that the vine wall is alive, and by then, 5 of his people have already been swallowed whole. Chaos erupts as more men are impaled. Through the lion puppets, the Zombie King observes the invaders and decides that if they are so eager to die, he will gladly oblige them. He commands his Tier 4 lion puppets to charge from the residential area. Tyrant 1 and Air Pang lead the assault, with Air Pang swinging a massive club with terrifying force. The blow shatters and awakens Rock's shield and the man behind it simultaneously. Meanwhile, Flame 1 raises both hands, summoning a dozen massive fireballs from the sky. The projectiles explode within the crowd, and 4 of the slower awakened are instantly consumed by the flames. The remaining 6 are sent flying, their bodies scorched black. Shield 1 immediately raises earthen walls to trap the survivors, while stone spikes begin to slowly advance from within. It is a calculated, cold-blooded execution. One man tries to scale the high wall, only to be blasted back by one of Flame 1's fireballs. Amidst the carnage, Captain Li tries to use the confusion to climb over and escape. However, Tyrant 1 is waiting outside and punches him straight into the dirt. Captain Lin and the others have likely perished, but we notice one detail the Zombie King missed. One awakened managed to use a body double ability to shed his skin like a cicada and slip away. Yun Ruoxue, watching through the vines, notices something odd about one corpse. The body isn't being consumed, which means there is a survivor. Her brow furrows as she realizes the intruder must have escaped using some sort of clone or decoy ability. Still, her own true strength remains a secret, and the enemy still mistakes her for the Zombie King. This, she tells herself, might provide a nice surprise for their next encounter. That night, Su Muqing tosses and turns in bed, unable to sleep. A sudden, perhaps idealistic, thought begins to take root in her mind. She wonders if she could somehow stop humanity from attacking the Zombie King, allowing both sides to find a way to coexist in peace. Meanwhile, Qian Yun returns to the base with the devastating news that 3 entire teams were wiped out. He reports that the Zombie King commands multiple Tier 4 evolved zombies. He adds with a trembling voice that even the plants there attack humans. As the news spreads, the High Command decides immediately to seek reinforcements from the imperial capital. Back at the farm, Yun Ruoxue convinces her father to unbind Su Muqing's chains. Su Muqing then asks to have a serious talk with him, and we find them sitting together in the living room. Su Muqing gets straight to the point, asking the Zombie King if he still possesses human consciousness. We see his gaze turn cold, as this is his most guarded secret. He writes a simple message: "I won't kill you, keep talking." Su Muqing takes a deep breath, thinking of the little girl, Xiao Qiqi. She points out that the child is human, and surely he doesn't want her living among zombies forever. This statement causes him to fall into a thoughtful silence. She asks if he would be willing to live in peace if she one day became the leader of humanity. Both he and Yun Ruoxue are visibly stunned by such an ambitious idea. However, he doesn't reject her outright, telling her to come back when she actually achieves that goal. The next day, Yun Ruoxue decides to reveal a secret of her own. To put his mind at ease regarding Su Muqing, she shows off her abilities, excitedly telling her father that she seems to have awakened superpowers. We see her spread her arms and fly around the room, leaving him thrilled that Xiao Qiqi has become an awakened. He immediately begins training her in earnest. He has her practice attacking with iron nails and even prepares poison needles for her to use as hidden weapons. It's a practical, if slightly intense, education. With these skills, Xiao Qiqi is becoming his greatest hidden trump card. Meanwhile, at the Zhanghai base, the leadership finally receives a response from the imperial capital. They have dispatched the Sky Squad to support them, a team entirely composed of Tier 3 awakened with the power of flight. A formidable force, to be sure. A formation of 5 armed helicopters arrives quickly, launching a fierce bombardment on the farm. Our protagonist can only watch in rage as his hard work is blown apart. Fortunately, the Tier 4 puppets remain unharmed. Flame 1 and Flame 2 transform into towering giants, weaving a massive net of fire that traps the Sky Squad in midair. Undead 1 unleashes bloodthirsty lightning and divine light, while Tyrant 1 uses his steel claws to systematically take down any awakened trying to break through. In the shadows, Yun Ruoxue uses her time control abilities and poison needles to eliminate several enemies who manage to charge toward the main house. Su Muqing fights desperately to protect Xiao Qiqi, taking a fatal wound to her abdomen and falling in a pool of blood. But thanks to her unique nature, she soon revives. She jumps right back into the fray until the 3 elite teams and the Sky Squad are completely wiped out. Only Qian Yun, with his body double trick, escapes again. The farm has been destroyed beyond recognition, and since the location is now compromised, he decides not to rebuild. It is time to move on. He writes on a piece of paper that wherever Xiao Qiqi goes, that will be their home. Su Muqing chooses to stay and travel alongside them. The convoy leaves the farm and heads south, eventually reaching the Beijing urban area. There, he begins harvesting evolved zombies while wiping out a local gang. The gang's second-in-command, Zhang Qing, manages to escape with a flying awakened. They flee to the Beijing base, ready to report everything they've seen. After harvesting every evolved zombie in the Beijing urban area, our convoy sets out once more. Upon breaking through to the 5th rank, his mental power expands significantly. His control range now reaches 50 kilometers, allowing him to simultaneously command a massive legion of 4th-rank puppets. A truly terrifying level of influence, to be honest. With 3 5th-rank puppets now under his command, we arrive at Shanchuan City. Unlike the previous ruins, this place is crawling with ferocious, mutated beasts. He leads his puppet army on a massive hunt through the city, collecting a wealth of golden boxes. After wiping out the Beast King cult on Sangyue Mountain, we see him move in. He loots their caves for vast amounts of supplies and fresh vegetables. Before dying, a cult protector mentions that their leader has gone to subdue a 5th-rank beast. This news puts him on high alert, and sure enough, the cult leader Huang Xian soon comes knocking. Before the apocalypse, this man was nothing more than a debt-collecting thug. After awakening the power to control beasts, he rose to power. His sister was driven to her death by the elite, so now he seeks to use the thunderous roar to destroy the Shanchuan base. He suggests they join forces since they share a common enemy. However, Su Muqing decisively rejects the offer, showing no interest in his thirst for vengeance. Feeling humiliated, Huang Xian sends a mutated pangolin that night to launch a surprise underground attack on Xiao Qiqi. A cowardly move by any standard. But Yun Ruoxue kills the creature in a single blow, sending a terrified Huang Xian fleeing. In his spite, he leaks our location to the Zhanghai base. Meanwhile, in Shanchuan, Yun Ruoxue successfully breaks through to the 5th rank. Her telekinesis has evolved, allowing her to condense her mental energy into physical needles. These needles can pierce through solid walls, and her time control has reached a new level of mastery, capable of causing a target to age and wither instantly. Su Muqing also reaches the 4th rank through a combination of cultivation and constant combat. She even jokingly suggests that Aunt Zhao Lin should be called the Black Cow Knight now. Zhao Lin is less than thrilled with the name, but Su Muqing's focus shifts as she learns the Imperial capital has dispatched their strongest ace, the Soaring Dragon Squad. This elite team once successfully assassinated a zombie king. Their key member is Zhao Bing, a master of disguise who serves as their ultimate trump card. Zhao Bing has the uncanny ability to mimic any living being, allowing him to infiltrate enemy lines undetected. It's a specialized skill that makes him incredibly dangerous. Their plan is to repeat their old trick. The main squad creates a distraction outside, while Zhao Bing disguises himself as a zombie to slip inside and find the leader. Once the zombie king is located, he intends to deliver a fatal blow. One night, Yun Ruoxue finally gathers the courage to confess her secret to her father. She demonstrates her time control, causing a potted plant to wither instantly and a piece of meat to dry up like a stone. It's a chilling display of her true potential. While he watches in a mix of shock and curiosity, Xiao Qiqi reveals an even more startling truth. And this, as it turns out, changes everything we thought we knew. He realizes that his daughter is already a 5th-rank evolver, leaving him stunned, yet he chooses not to press for answers as long as she remains his daughter. Xiao Qiqi raises her small fist with a bright smile, promising to protect her father from now on, and he gently rubs her head in response. Feeling a deep sense of warmth and pride, he leads the convoy into the Lijiang area, where he routinely uses his puppets to harvest golden boxes. However, the response from the Lijiang base is unexpectedly swift, catching our group completely off guard. In that critical moment, Yun Ruoxue steps forward in a fit of rage, declaring that no one is allowed to lay a finger on her father. She unleashes the full power of her time control, using her telekinesis to send every incoming shell back to its source, wiping out the artillery position. The survivors flee in terror only to be hunted by his puppet army, with only one evolver managing to teleport the commander to safety. This battle effectively annihilates the offensive forces of the Lijiang base, and as he watches Xiao Qiqi display such terrifying power, he can't help but feel an immense sense of pride in the strength his daughter has cultivated. A father's pride is a powerful thing, after all. Meanwhile, a helicopter is flying toward Shanchuan City, where Zhao Bing, the master of mimicry, sits sharpening his combat blade. With a confident smile, he assures his captain that the mission will be a success. Back at the house, the battle for Lijiang has finally concluded. He sits on the living room sofa, scanning the surroundings through the eyes of his puppets, when Yun Ruoxue approaches him with a serious expression. She tells him they can no longer stay here, and he nods in agreement, having already anticipated this necessity. To be honest, it was only a matter of time. Su Muqing walks over from the window, her face still dusted with the grime of combat, noting that while they won, they've exposed too much of their strength. She urges Li Moyan that they must leave immediately, as the reaction speed of the Lijiang base was far faster than anyone expected. If reinforcements are called in, they risk being surrounded. Thus, 30 minutes later, the convoy is racing south along the main city artery. He specifically chooses a route that leads away from the base city, using the high-altitude reconnaissance of Flight Number 1 to keep watch. He confirms that the remnants of the Lijiang forces show no signs of pursuit, allowing the convoy to drive at full speed for 2 hours. Finally, they manage to cross the boundary of the Lijiang urban area, leaving the immediate danger behind them. They are about to exit Jiang province, but we learn that the various base cities within the province have already begun sharing intelligence with one another. He knows his movements are becoming impossible to hide, but once they cross the provincial border, information sharing between different base cities will slow down significantly. By the time other provinces react, he'll be long gone. Su Muqing is surprised, however, at the suggestion of leaving Jiang province entirely. She notes that leaving the province means a very long journey, but Yun Ruoxue answers for him, insisting that being far away is for the best. If they stay in Jiang province, it's only a matter of time before they are found. Su Muqing relents, and the convoy continues its southward trek. Along the way, he casually harvests a batch of golden boxes from fallen zombies. By evening, they set up camp near an abandoned gas station. As the campfire crackles, Su Muqing hands Xiao Qiqi a grilled rib before taking a long swig of beer, wondering aloud about his past. She jokes that with skills like these, he must have been a professional chef. Yun Ruoxue smiles, while he remains focused on a map in the passenger seat. We see him studying the route. There are still 200 kilometers to the border, but a major obstacle lies directly in their path. Linen City stretches across the north and south, making it nearly impossible to bypass. To move forward, they must go straight through the urban center. Linen undoubtedly has its own base city. He frowns, realizing that if Lijiang has already spread the word, Linen will be waiting for them. The city might already be on high alert, turning their passage into another brutal battle. Yun Ruoxue seems to sense his growing concern. Xiao Qiqi runs over and leans against the car window to peer at the map, asking if he is worried about Linen City. He nods silently. With a determined look, she tells him not to worry because she is there to protect him. She clenches her small fist with such sincerity that he can't help but smile, reaching out to gently pinch her cheek. But this brief moment of peace is shattered when, through the eyes of Flight Number 1, he spots small black dots on the northern horizon. They are approaching fast at high altitude. His expression turns cold as he realizes these aren't the usual helicopters from the Lijiang base. He immediately orders everyone into the vehicles, handing a note to Su Muqing. Without a word, she scoops up Yun Ruoxue and runs for the car. Yun Ruoxue narrows her eyes at the 3 helicopters, confirming they don't belong to Lijiang. Su Muqing's face pales at the realization. The helicopters circle a few kilometers to the north before vanishing from sight, but he doesn't lower his guard for a second. He commands Flight Number 1 to follow them stealthily from a distance. Through the drone's feed, he watches as 7 individuals descend from the aircraft. We see 7 well-equipped soldiers descending from the aircraft, led by a man with a buzz cut who radiates the powerful aura of a rank 4 combatant. After landing, they immediately begin to set up camp, and it's clear these people are far from ordinary. They are likely elites from a major base city. Or perhaps, they were sent directly from the imperial capital, a thought that makes him tense up, remembering the Sky team he faced at Shimizu Farm. He suspects this might be the capital's second ace team, so he decides to wait and see, ordering Flight Number 1 to keep a close watch on them. At the same time, he has the convoy kill their engines to hide in the darkness, watching as the 7-man team settles into their camp. From the way they frequently check their maps and documents, it's obvious they are on a specific mission. This is no mere coincidence. They are coming for him. Yun Ruoxue, who is still awake and meditating in the back seat, immediately senses the shift in his mood. When she asks if something is wrong, he writes a note explaining that a well-equipped 7-man team, likely from the capital, has arrived to the north. He notes they are probably looking for them, and after reading this, Yun Ruoxue frowns, knowing that an ace team from the capital is a serious threat. Such teams often include individuals with special abilities. While the last team focused on flight, this group might possess something even more troublesome. This is exactly what he fears most. Suddenly, one of the young experts from the 7-man team leaves the camp and enters the nearby forest alone. As the man steps into the trees, his human aura abruptly shifts, transforming into the unmistakable, cold presence of a zombie. The man can disguise himself as one of the undead, and in an instant, he understands their strategy. It's a clever, if slightly terrifying, trick. If he hadn't seen this, the infiltrator could have easily slipped into their ranks and launched a surprise attack once he got close enough. He realizes this is likely how a previous zombie king was taken down, and sensing the danger, he quickly informs Yun Roashua about the shifter. Yun Roashua's expression turns incredibly grave as she processes the news of a man who can wear the face of a zombie. The innocence on her face fades, replaced by a sharp, calculating gaze, as she acknowledges that such an ability is exceedingly rare. She warns him that if the disguise is perfect, even his mental powers might not be able to tell the difference. But then, she offers a solution. Her voice is calm and filled with a quiet confidence as she explains that her time mastery allows her to perceive the temporal flow of all living things. The flow of time for a zombie is fundamentally different from that of a human, making it impossible for any disguise to fool her senses. Inside a zombie, the process of aging has ground to a halt, whereas a human, no matter how they disguise themselves, still flows with the normal passage of time. As long as she senses that flow, she can drag him into the light. He feels a wave of relief, yet he has no intention of being reckless. We see him change the plan, writing on his notepad that they will bypass Lingen City and take the mountain roads instead. At that moment, Su Muqin wakes up. She leans in to read the note, noting that a detour will add several days to their journey. But as he knows, a few extra days are better than walking into an ambush. The path they choose is a remote, narrow mountain trail, the kind of place where every mile is a struggle. While the terrain is difficult, it offers excellent concealment. However, it seems he may have underestimated the tracking capabilities of his pursuers. After the convoy has traveled for about 3 hours, word arrives that the 7-man team has broken camp and is moving south on a path parallel to theirs. They are being followed. Through the high-altitude perspective of Flight Number 1, we see a mutated bird of prey circling in the clouds directly above the convoy. Killing the creature would be simple enough, but doing so would alert the enemy. To be honest, it would likely force them to change their tactics immediately. They would stop waiting for an ambush and switch to an all-out assault, which is a complication he'd rather avoid for now. He decides to show a moment of weakness, inviting the infiltrator to slip in so they can catch the whole group at once. Su Muqin, however, is hesitant. She worries the risk is too great. What if the infiltrator's abilities are even more formidable than they imagine? Yun Roashua simply pats her chest with confidence, assuring them that with her there, the intruder won't be able to cause any trouble. Su Muqin looks at the young girl and remembers how she reversed an entire artillery barrage the day before. She wisely decides to keep her mouth shut. By evening, the convoy stops to set up camp in a wide river valley. He intentionally leaves only a few puppets on guard, hiding the high-rank ones in the woods. From the outside, the camp's defenses look riddled with holes. As night falls, he sits by the campfire, appearing relaxed while his mental power is fully extended. Inside the tent, Yun Roashua appears to be sleeping, but in reality, her time mastery is active, sensing every ripple in the temporal flow around them. Su Muqin, meanwhile, is actually asleep. At midnight, his mental energy finally captures something unusual at the edge of the camp. An ordinary-looking zombie is slowly approaching. Its appearance is identical to any other undead, but its path is far too deliberate to be natural. It carefully bypasses the patrolling puppets, weaving through the gaps in the defense toward the heart of the camp. He chooses not to alert the intruder just yet. Instead of acting, he continues to feign ignorance as the zombie draws closer, eventually reaching the very edge of the camp. The intruder's gaze sweeps across the campfire, finally locking onto him. With a short blade in hand, the figure lunges forward. But just as the infiltrator closes within 5 meters, time itself comes to a standstill. Yun Roashua steps out of the tent, her expression cold. It is indeed a human, she notes calmly. A true zombie has no temporal flow, yet this man's heart is still beating. He stands up and approaches the frozen infiltrator, examining the disguise. From the outward appearance to the physical details, the mimicry is nearly flawless. To be honest, without Yun Roashua's mastery over time, even he might not have seen through it immediately. The disguise was almost perfect, but in this world, almost is rarely enough to survive a confrontation with our protagonists. A moment later, he releases a surge of mental power, signaling the hidden rank 5 lion puppets in the forest to begin the total assault. Miles away at the 7-man team's temporary camp, they instantly sense an overwhelming murderous intent. Their scout has been exposed. Qin Heng, the crew cut leader, pales as he shouts for everyone to prepare for battle. But as we see, it is already far too late. Fire One's spirit blood flames arrive first. In less than 10 seconds, their 3 helicopters are transformed into massive balls of fire. Their retreat is cut off, leaving one of the evolvers deathly pale. Undead One follows close behind, a bloody light enveloping the area. An enemy evolver, trying to activate his ability, finds his body flying uncontrollably toward Undead One. A blood spirit serpent strikes next, piercing through the man's chest instantly. From high above, Flight 1 dives down, expanding its aerial spirit domain over the battlefield. Under the influence of this domain, the ranged attacks from two enemy evolvers slow to a crawl, their power reduced to practically nothing. Flight 1's steel claws, however, remain unaffected. Qin Hung activates his ability, covering his body in a defensive layer of silver metal armor. It is a formidable defense, but when Airpang's club slams down, the armor dents heavily. A second strike follows immediately after. The metal armor shatters completely. Qin Hung coughs up blood as he is sent flying, but before he even hits the ground, the serpent is upon him. The pursuit is relentless, leaving no room for a counterattack or even a final word of defiance. Su Muqin, startled awake by the commotion, steps out in her coat and gasps. "Kill them," Yun Ruoxue says with chilling composure. With a simple flick of his wrist, a needle of mental energy pierces the infiltrator's brow. Time resumes its flow, and the man's body collapses limply to the ground. As the corpse reverts to its human form, Su Muqin kneels down. From an inner pocket, she pulls out an identification card belonging to the Tunglong squad. He remains largely indifferent, but Yun Ruoxue's reaction is unexpected. She stares at the card for a long time, her mind clearly racing back to the Imperial capital. Two Elite Ace squads have now been completely wiped out. Next time, she realizes they likely won't send another team. So what will they send instead? An army. Yun Ruoxue looks up, her gaze deep with worry. Once the capital confirms that both Ace squads have been eliminated, the situation changes entirely. They will classify her father as a maximum level threat. From that moment on, the intensity of the pursuit will grow exponentially. After all, losing two elite teams only serves to prove the sheer danger of the Zombie King to the authorities. They won't give up, they will simply double down on their efforts. He writes on a piece of paper that they must leave immediately. That very night, the convoy sets off without further delay, refusing to stop for rest. He orders Flight 1 to maintain constant high-altitude reconnaissance to ensure no pursuers are following. As they approach the outskirts of Linen City, he decides not to take a detour, but to drive straight through. A detour would add 5 days to the journey, and 5 more days in the wilderness means 5 more days of risk. While Linen City houses a base city, the urban area is massive. By choosing a route far from the base, they can pass through quickly and quietly. The probability of being discovered is actually quite low. To ensure their safety, he releases his mental power in advance to clear the path. He brings all the zombies along the route under his control, forcing them to make way. The convoy glides through the dark city streets like a ghost, moving without making a single sound. They successfully navigate most of Linen, nearing the southern exit of the metropolitan area. Just then, Flight 1 transmits an urgent report. On the elevated bridge at the southern exit, a military convoy is parked, blocking the way. Several armored vehicles and military trucks are positioned across the bridge, forming a solid roadblock. Snipers have even been deployed on the surrounding buildings. These are troops from the Linen base city. However, after a careful look, he notices the soldiers aren't actually in a state of high combat readiness. It seems Linen base city simply set up checkpoints at major entrances after receiving reports of a zombie king in the area. A standard precaution, really. Yun Ruoxue whispers that they cannot pass this way. Even if they could fight through, the commotion would be far too loud and attract the entire city's forces. He agrees to the detour. The convoy turns around, slipping quietly into a secluded side street to find another way around the blockade. We see the convoy detour west through the narrow alleys. He plans to cross the industrial zone in western Linen to reach the ring road. However, the road conditions in the industrial zone are abysmal, filled with collapsed factories and stalled vehicles. 20 minutes later, they finally emerge. Just as he thinks they are about to make a clean break, the sudden roar of helicopter blades echoes from behind them. 3 attack helicopters fly in from the city center, their searchlights cutting through the night as they hunt for their target. With a single thought, he orders the convoy to accelerate. The helicopters give chase immediately, locking their beams onto the fleeing vehicles. Cannons roar, sending rounds slamming into the asphalt behind the convoy in a spray of sparks. A voice commands them to stop for inspection. The warning is clear: stop immediately, or they will be fired upon and destroyed. It is a tense moment, but they have no intention of complying with such a request. The searchlights eventually lose them, and the pursuit breaks off. The convoy speeds across the city limits, vanishing into the vast darkness. Su Muqin lets out a long sigh of relief, but he remains uneasy. The Linen base city will certainly report they're heading to the capital. From here on, every second counts. The convoy races forward, and by dawn, they finally spot the markers for the provincial border. But the moment they cross the line, Flight 1 transmits a high-altitude image that causes his confidence to vanish instantly. On a hilltop south of the border, Huang Xian stands alone, looking down at the passing convoy with an unsettling calm. He is simply watching from a distance, observing their movements. Yun Ruoxue notices him too, her expression hardening at the sight. She knows this man is dangerous and won't give up his pursuit so easily. To be honest, he is the last person they wanted to see. She asks if they should take him out now, but he simply shakes his head. While they killed Huang Xian's subordinate, the man himself isn't awakened. There is no telling what hidden trump cards he might be holding. This isn't the best time for a confrontation. Once they are further away, they can plan. They must consider their next move carefully and avoid any unnecessary risks for the time being. After all, a direct fight right now might cost them more than they are willing to pay. The highway is still cluttered with abandoned cars, but it's nothing compared to the rugged mountain paths. 3 days later, they arrive in Yunzhou. We see Yunzhou City, which was once a bustling metropolis of 3 million people before the apocalypse, but has now become a vast territory for the undead. However, to him, this place is nothing less than a massive treasure trove. 3 million people means an enormous number of zombies. And a high density of zombies means a wealth of crystals and resources. Plus, being far from Jiang province, news travels slowly here. For a short time, he doesn't have to worry about pursuit from the human bases. As the convoy enters the city, he begins clearing the surrounding nests. He spends his time harvesting crystals one by one, while Yun Ruoxua seizes every moment to cultivate and feed her old turtle. After days of accumulation, the turtle finally reaches the 4th rank. It has grown so large that one could practically set up a table on its back for cards. Su Muqin isn't idling either. She rides out daily on the Black Bull, Dahe, to hunt fierce beasts and steadily improve her strength. She also remains dedicated to practicing the 9 elements pulse-severing technique that Yun Ruoxua taught her. It is a demanding discipline, but her progress is undeniable. He has confidence in them, but his only real wish is to find a safe place for little Cece to grow up. Unfortunately, on their 5th night in Yunzhou, while he is still searching for that elusive safety, the peace is shattered. On that 5th night, he checks the reconnaissance feed. Through Flight 1's high-altitude sensors, he discovers a massive convoy moving toward them from the northwest of the city. Dozens of military vehicles, armored cars, and tanks are being escorted by 6 attack helicopters. It is a formidable force, to say the least. In the center are several command vehicles marked with special insignia, all heading straight for the heart of Yunzhou. The news has finally caught up. His heart sinks. It seems the capital has expanded the bounty on the Zombie King to the neighboring provinces. This force is likely a suppression unit formed by the provincial base. Of course, it's also possible that Huang Xian leaked their location to the local authorities. Regardless of the reason, they can no longer stay here. Su Muqin has grown used to this nomadic life and begins packing in silence. Yun Ruoxua walks to the window, looking out at the quiet city streets. She tells him that they cannot keep running forever. He knows she is right, but for now, there is no other choice. He promises her that one day, the running will stop. Yun Ruoxua turns back and gives him a smile, one filled with a calm and determination far beyond her years as dawn approaches. As dawn breaks, our group's convoy vanishes into the fading shadows of Yunzhou City, while dozens of kilometers away, that massive military fleet continues its steady advance. Inside the lead command vehicle, a cold-faced middle-aged man is leafing through a thick file, the cover of which is stamped with a bright red top-secret seal and a simple 5-word title, The Zombie King Dossier. He closes the folder and looks out toward the distant, dark silhouette of Yunzhou. Deep down, he is certain that this time, there will be nowhere left to run.